Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of the Tetracast. This is RPG Site's weekly podcast where we get the site staff together to talk about our favorite genre of video games. We've got the whole crew here today. My name is Brian Vitale. With me, I have Josh Torres.
Hola.
Adam Vitale.
Hello.
James Galizio.
Hey, folks.
And Chow Min Woo.
How's it going?
We are nearing the end of October already, surprisingly. We had a lot of games released in just the last couple of days, both new releases as well as some highly anticipated ports. As of the time of recording, just a day ago, we got the official release of Persona 5 Royal on Steam and Switch, as I was corrected last week, and Xbox. I said Xbox, and then we had a few like indie or AA games that came out in the last couple of days. We have that we'll talk about a few at the start of the podcast here. Ultra Kaiju, Monster Rancher, and Batora Lost Haven. Also, a couple of days ago, we had what else? Oh yeah, Gotham Knights. We probably won't be talking about that, at least not this week. If we get morbidly curious in the coming weeks and find some time, we might do that, but won't be covering that here.
To be clear,
of course.
I just want to say we requested review code and then they just didn't give us any. So that's that.
Oh yeah, so yeah, we were trying to get Scott on it, but just we
had people interested in playing it, and then we asked, we're like, hey, we want to review this.
Are they still normally interested in playing it?
Maybe they spared us,
Yeah,
maybe they saw my my preview where it was like this has potential, but it's a little bit disappointing right now.
That is the weird part. Like you actually got face to face, with them too.
Yeah, and the thing that really gets me is that apparently a lot of people just had like Parsec streams for checking out like Gotham Knights for previews. So it's like, no, to be clear, I was like invited to the Warner Brothers offices and I played it in person on a PS5.
Like, I think that, and usually when you go to those events, like usually you get that's usually the hookup that you would need to get a review code as well. Like usually if you're invited in person to preview the game, usually they'd be like, okay, we'll send you a review code, like closer to release or something after that, usually, but this is a weird, very weird case.
I guess that Mario and Rabbids game also came out. That kind of is in our wheelhouse.
That's where it gets tricky with the genre blending. Like, is this a tactical RPG or is it just pure tactics? And
it's like covering XCOM. Is XCOM a RPG? Would you consider what? And then some people would say yes, some people would say no. And then we're here left kind of like people get angry at us when we cover Monster Hunter, and even Capcom says it's an RPG, and they're like, no, it's not. Fuck you. It's like, all right, well.
Well, the excuse we could use for Monster Hunter now is that we generally cover spin-offs for RPGs, and guess what? Monster Hunter Stories 2 is very much a JRPG.
I don't know. So it's just one of those things. Like it's one of those like. I hear the new Mario and Rabbids 2 is pretty good, but it's kind of one of those things. It's like, does it fall in our house? Maybe not. So it's kind of like that weird.
Well, I think more importantly is just if anyone's interested. It's one of those things where if a contributor to the site it says, I want to write about this, usually, maybe not in every case, but usually we can make it work. But if no one's interested, then we're not going to hold someone under a barrel and be like, no, you got to write about this. You're obligated. There are a few games where you're obligated, like Final Fantasy or Elden Ring or things like that. But in most cases, nah, which is kind of a lucky benefit that we gotta get at a site of our scale.
No one's interested in FF16 in our site. Everyone's like, yeah,
PS5 is not an excuse.
That's very much an excuse, Everyone's still, especially with the price increase a few weeks back on it.
Mm-hmm. So at the start of this podcast here, normally we try to pick a headliner game for the week, and there are, obviously 50 plus weeks in a year. So not every week do we get that. So we're going to kind of go back to our old style and just kind of go around the room and talk about what we've been playing. Luckily, both Adam and Josh have been playing some of the new releases that I just mentioned. So we'll go ahead and start with those. And then Chow has gone back to a game that we have thought of very highly on the site, though we haven't talked about it on this podcast in a good long while. And then we'll just go wrap it up with what James and I have been doing. And before we go into the big news, which will be a lot of Square Enix focused titles and a lot of Falcom stuff, kind of similar to last week on that. So we're going to start out with what Adam has been playing. Adam, a couple of weeks ago, was playing, would you call Asterios an indie RPG? It's a debut project from that studio.
Yeah, I would say so.
And this week, you're kind of doing the same sort of thing with another game that I've seen us cover on the site. I assume that you've written most of the news articles for it. They came out a couple of days ago, called Batora Lost Haven. Now, for those that read that title and don't have anything come to mind, can you just kind of explain to us what Batora Lost Haven is, what it looks like, maybe if you know any insight on who developed it, and then what your thoughts are on it?
Yeah, so this is a game also from an indie studio, but the studio is Stormmind Games. It's not their first game. They also released the remothered Tormented Fathers like horror game. I know nothing about that game, but that was a game that released, a couple of years ago, several years ago now. So this Batora Lost Haven is their second game. And so this game is an isometric, kind of almost like a twin stick shooter sort of RPG, where you have like a top-down view controlling your character and use one stick to aim and one stick to move sort of thing. And so this game...
Is it single player only?
Yeah, it's single player. But I'm just going to come out and say it. I am really not feeling it like at all.
Oh, no.
So yeah, it's not, I played it because I thought it was interesting, but I'm not. But so I haven't finished the game. I'm maybe halfway through it, roughly or so. The premise of the game is that Earth has basically been partially like destroyed in like some sort of big cataclysmic event that hasn't really been revealed exactly why or how that happened. But your character, who is a young woman named Avril, are basically planet hopping to other planets with the help of these sort of like godlike figures to basically save the universe, it's in a very broad sense. But things I don't like about the game, one, the dialogue is extremely quippy. Like imagine the worst like type of, Marvel snip dialogue where you have like zingers and jokes and just kind of irreverent.
And then mix up the camera, after the line and all that.
Sorry?
Like it's like one of those like the typical like Marvel dialogue of like it's like lighthearted,
Yeah,
and then like whenever they make like a line or a joke, they like kind of like subtly like wink at the camera.
yeah. There's just like even in moments that should be serious, there's just a lot of like irreverent, like this is a zinger or kind of like a joke or a sarcasm or whatever, and it's just kind of like it got old really fast and it hasn't let up, and I'm just like, oh man.
And I just want to clarify, you're not saying it's like that type of dialogue is inherently bad. This game is just overwrought with it.
I mean, I will say I think that dialogue is kind of inherently bad, especially
never mind. I will put words in
it. Like I don't mind if there's like an occasional joke or something, but it's just like this. It's just like full of it, and it's just like
it's like fine if it's fine. It's like a comedy film, but he's not playing it to get a comedy film out of it,
Yeah, but also like the game is ostensibly an RPG, but it's extremely straightforward and like tunneled, linear, narrow path in terms of, and I mean that in almost a literal sense as well as just, the game structure itself, where you pretty much are always just going down a very straight path. There are no side quests in this game. You're just kind of going down the game path and you're fighting enemies on the way and you're basically just dialogue and battles. But then even for like combat, there's no gear, there's no skill tree, there's nothing to basically like customize how you approach the game in terms of like, is there a certain weapon you like? Are there certain skills you like? Is there a certain, combination?
Weapons, or you just have the same weapon?
No, it's just the same weapon. And it's just...
So what is there? I'm sorry.
Yeah, exactly. You have like... so the gameplay of the game is you have two forms. You have a physical form and like a spiritual form. The physical form, you basically have a big like broadsword and it's more close range, attacking up front, dodge rolling. Again, this is like an isometric game, so kind of imagine, I don't know, like Diablo Barbarian or something, getting up close and personal, attacking with your broadsword, dodge rolling out of the way. You do get a skills for example, there's a skill where you can sort of like do a leaping slash, and then another skill where you can do like a tornado where you like spin your broadsword in like a full 360-degree circle and whatnot. Again, no skill tree. Those are just skills you have with the sword. And then the other form, the spiritual form, is more like a ranged attack. So you shoot little like purple bullets from a distance. They're not as strong, but you're safe because you're at a distance. You have skills in this form that are more like a bigger like blast, if you will. rather than a bullet, and then you also get like a tornado that you can summon. So how the game works, its conceit is that there are certain enemies that are weak to the physical form and certain enemies that are weak to the spiritual form. And so when you attack enemies, you're basically switching between forms kind of constantly all the time. So that's basically the main gameplay, is knowing how to use each form and switching between them at proper times. It's just that that's really all it is. Like you can't change it up. There's no customization at all, no gear, no weapon types, no skills that you can choose, like I want this skill or this skill. The only thing that comes close to that is that you do gain these runes in the game these are the only things you can equip in the game are runes. And they have things that are just like, for example, you can buy a rune that's just like plus 50 attack. So it's like, okay, I guess I got an attack bonus. And then there are some runes that have like a little bit of a trade-off where it's like plus 30 attack minus 5% critical rate. It's like, okay, there's a trade-off there. And then there's some runes that are like you have more health or whatever. That's really about it so far. I imagine that I probably still have a few skills to unlock just through like natural story progression. But like I said before, you don't like choose which skills you want to use or any sort of gameplay style, because the gameplay style is just set. It's there. And I kind of find that just a little disappointing. That
I saw that like when you were playing it, and we were talking about it a little bit, like this game has a lot of like escort missions.
Oh yeah,
like design.
So in this game, there's a lot of points in the game where you have like an ally, and the ally, to be honest, is kind of useless. And if they die in battle, you have to like load the last checkpoint. And I was in a mission where my ally just kept dying. And it's annoying, you know.
Did you issue like any commands to them, like say get the fuck out of the way? All right.
Nope. You have no control over them whatsoever. Now here's the thing, like when I play a game like this is when I play any RPG, really oftentimes, like I don't do this with any sort of intent or anything, but I oftentimes play through the game without like messing too much with my, like in this case, runes. So I was kind of like a little bit underleveled and a little bit weak, but I was fine. I was basically saving my money to buy better runes later. But if I was just playing my character by myself, I think I'm good enough where I can dodge and take my time and defeat the enemies. But when you have an ally there just being a dork, like, okay, I actually have to buy better runes and whatnot and actually like power up my character. It's not how I normally play these games. I normally kind of like, I don't know, almost like restrict myself or challenge myself. But with the
basically you don't need to min-max your gear or your stats or your attributes because you can just play better. But the ally can't do that.
Exactly. So like when you're playing like a more classic RPG, it's like maybe I won't buy the best weapon here because I'll buy the best weapon at the next place or whatever, you know, and save your money until then. But no, here it's just like I had to do that because of the ally, and there's a lot of allies that you have to escort in this game, and if they die, you have to restart. So it was just kind of annoying. It didn't not that bad, but still just kind of blah. And so far, the story's not really hooking me. Like I said, the characters I don't care about. The dialogue has kind of soured me on everything. The game, as you go through the game, you do get more skills, and that, of course, does make combat a little bit more dynamic, a little bit more interesting. But otherwise, I'm not really feeling this. The art style is nice. The music is okay. That's about all I have to say.
So I remember a couple years ago, whenever you mention a game is a twin stick shooter or twin stick, maybe not a shooter, but a twin stick game, isometric view, I think of when me and you played through Darksiders Genesis, and also kind of thought that game wasn't very good. We scored it pretty poorly. Just wondering, like, I'm trying to think of like a game that is that gameplay style that I actually do enjoy. Because I played like isometric. The Ascent was also okay. I don't think I scored it very high. But yeah, that's another similar game where I just didn't quite feel it. I feel like a lot of times those games, if they have an action focus, they get like really spammy. I think I prefer my combat to be like a slightly slower, because I play plenty of isometric games like Fallout or Divinity or things like that, where they're either explicitly turn-based or they're real-time with pause. I'm trying to think of like an isometric action game that I really, really enjoy, and I'm kind of blanking. So like, I don't know. Maybe this is a sort of thing where I know you're the one that was looking at Batora Lost Haven for us, and I wasn't the one playing it. But just trying to think of like whether there's a game that there's a person who really does gel with that gameplay style and would actually find something out of this. I just feel kind of bad that we're opening with this game and then you feel like, it's not that great. But I was gonna, before you kind of caveated at the very end, I was gonna be like, how's the art style? How's the music? How's the story? And then you basically like rattled off all three of those and said, not great, or fine. So I'm like trying to like flip through like my deck of cards here and be like, how is the UI? How is the menu?
Speaking of the UI, I mentioned
I wasn't
this when
expecting to
I was
actually
playing
get something here.
No. The text box you have for your dialogue is like huge. It takes up like a third of the screen, and then the text in it is like tiny. Like it takes up like it's like in a corner of this giant text box. You have your text, and I was actually looking through the menu. Like, is there a way to increase the text size? And there's not. You can change the text size for like the some of the cinematic cutscenes, but not for like the normal text box, which most of the dialogue is in. I mean, it's not like a deal breaker any more than any other issue I have with the game, but it's just kind of like, why do I have this giant text box and this tiny text in it? It just feels kind of weird. Like, this is how you designed how the game looks? Sure, I guess.
So just to kind of like summarize your thoughts, is it more that you actually think the game is not good, or just that it doesn't hook you and it's just more kind of bland and uninteresting?
I mean, just like, obviously anything I say is just an opinion of mine. I guess when
course.
I play like an RPG, I tend to like some sort of, I know some people hate this phrase, but player agency. Like, I want to have some control over how the game plays, how my character is built, my skill set, my loadout. That's one big reason why I play RPGs is, maybe a party configuration or a skill set. But here it's just like walking down the path, using the skills that are given to me in a story that I'm not really feeling, with dialogue that is annoying the heck out of me. And so I kind of wish I had more control over how it played. Sorry?
How do you unlock skills again? Just like through the story?
It's just natural through the story. Like, once you get past the second level, you gain a new skill. Yeah.
Okay.
It's just during story progression. So
is there any sort of like dungeoning, like lock and key, Metroidvania, puzzles?
It's basically like linear paths, and then occasionally you'll get to a point where it's like, all right, you're in a little like circular path area where you need to find 4 thingamabobs, and then once you get the 4 thingamabobs, you can basically go through the next path to get to the boss. But it's still the same. Like, you walk down the path, fight an enemy, pick up the thingamabob, continue down the path, get the next one. So not really. Sort of.
Not every game's going to be a winner, That's basically the summary.
Yeah, it's not like I decided to play this game to like hate on it. I'm like, hey, this looks interesting, and I'm like, I'm not really feeling this.
It's not like we go into a game like expecting to like dislike it. Just like we play something. It's like sometimes it doesn't jive with us. Not every game we're going to talk about on this podcast is always going to be,
Hey, I think it was 2 weeks ago. I pretty much did the same thing with Asterigos. And by same thing, I mean just picked up a game, decided to play it, and I don't think I've said it since, but I've beaten the game, and I like that game a fair bit. It has some issues, a lot of it just due to its scope or its budget, but hey, I think that game is actually halfway decent, pretty good for that game was like a debut project from a new studio, and I think it's decent. But this one is just, it's possible it'll get better in the second half, but it's already sort of soured me quite a bit at this point, so.
I don't think I'll find time to play it, just being honest, but I'm looking at like the games where I did the same thing this year and kind of like went out on a limb to try to find a diamond in the rough. But the whole point of that phrase is that they're, rare and hard to spot. Because I tried like Weird West earlier in the year, reviewed it, wasn't great. Tried Outbound Ghost just a couple weeks ago, was the opposite of great. It was terrible. But
you also played Expeditions Rome. You thought that was pretty good, right?
That one was good. I liked Expeditions Rome, though I get the developer behind that I wouldn't quite call indie. It's just more PC focused. So sometimes PC focused games we don't have quite as much of a look in. All right, so yeah, Expeditions Rome was the one time back in January now where I did go out on a limb and actually really quite enjoyed it. But yeah, I might like Asterigos. You haven't quite. We talked about it on the podcast two or 3 weeks ago.
I talked about it 2 weeks ago.
That?
I will review it and just taking my time with it.
Okay. Well, so that's Batora Lost Haven. We've had a few games kind of in that same boat where we want to make sure that we give these smaller titles a look in, but then also we're going to be honest if we're not quite feeling them, and that's just kind of where we're at right here. So, came out a couple days ago. It's on. You played it on PC?
Pretty much everything. I'm playing on PC.
Yeah, it's on PC, Xbox, Switch, PlayStation consoles. Well, thank you, Adam, for the honest look in for Batora Lost Haven. And then a game that came out, I believe, on the exact same day is something that Josh was able to look at. And it's another game where I recognize the title, but I don't quite know what the game actually is. And that is Ultra Kaiju Monster Rancher. So, Josh, I'm going to hand this off to you, and kind of in the same boat for what I kind of leaded with Adam for. If I recognize this title, but I don't quite know what Ultra Kaiju Monster Rancher is, can you just kind of describe what this game is and then kind of go into like how your thoughts are on it so far?
I don't blame people for not recognizing it. It's a very extremely niche title, especially these days. People may recognize the Monster Rancher name because there was a popular cartoon back in the day. Yeah, the Monster Rancher series, both the show, the popular anime show, and like the games. It's that series where in the games you can summon a monster to train, and back in the day you pop in like music CDs into like your PlayStation to like summon these monsters. There's this device called Disc Stones like in that world, and like you go to an altar to summon a monster through a Disc Stone. So that's how this was emulated like in the older games. It's like, hey, you pop in like a music CD, you like buy an album or like a single back at the music shop, and like you put it in, and then whatever you'll summon a monster out of that music CD. And that was like
Okay.
really,
Sorry
really
to interrupt
cool
you.
thing back in the day.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I remember we were talking about Monster Rancher coming to Switch a couple years ago and how they had to change how they implemented that feature because obviously you can't stick a CD in there.
Yeah.
And then for Ultra Kaiju Monster Rancher, my brain just didn't tie that is actually from the same IP. I just assumed it was using the terms Monster Rancher generically. I didn't realize it was tied to the same series.
Yeah, it's like a spin-off of it because in this one it's collabing with like Ultraman, so like you're raising Ultraman villains, the kaiju from that series in this one, and that's a really fun spin to it. But yes, this is like still the same basic foundation and framework. In modern days, like how they released it like in Japan, like you would like pick like they have like a music database where they can summon monsters from. So like you pick an artist, you pick like an album, like from a set that they give you, and then you whatever combination you do, you'll summon a monster from it. I don't know how they did it for the Western releases for that, but for this one, they took out that music selection because there might be some weird. Oh, obviously, going to be a licensing nightmare, especially overseas and while working with record labels to get that feature in, or even like the potential of it, right? So instead of having that music selection feature in the Western versions for this game, you like enter generic like keywords. So like put like type in keyword 1 and then type in keyword 2, and like you can pretty much like type whatever you want, like and it'll summon a monster from the 2 keywords that you feed it into. So obviously, the communities can like go look into like, okay, what are like the cool keywords to summon like the monsters that you want. But that's like the basic setup of like what Monster Rancher is, just from the outset. In this game, it is very much like the older Monster Rancher games where you most of the game is like kind of like a simulation almost of like training like your kaiju, these big Ultraman villains are gigantic, and like you put them through like training drills and like to get them beefed up to like make them participate in fights and tournaments and so forth. Like the basic premise is funny because the story of this game, how they justify it is like they do like this ancient mural of like there was once a time where like the kaiju and the humans like lived in peace, but the kaiju like can't like because of like their size and like they kept like interfering with like the human world and like just making life harder for them, which is kind of like a euphemization of like just what the conceit of Ultraman is, of like your kids show like the kaiju go invade the city and Ultraman has to go and like stop them from doing that. So in this game, like their solution was like they would put these kaiju into these stones, and now all these kaiju have been like moved into like a remote island, and so and then so that's this kind of like a customary thing in this world now, where people who like can like go into this profession of like breeding kaiju and like becoming like a trainer on this remote island. So you take on the role of like this trainer who goes to this remote island and you go through like the introductory steps of like, hey, this is how you summon a kaiju. In this game, it also has like NFC cards that like come with like some of the physical editions. So like there is a feature to like this will probably resonate more in Japan, obviously, than like and then in other parts of the world, where like you can actually like use like say like a transportation card or like an employee ID card that have like NFC features, and like you can like tap that into like your Switch controller, and you can like summon a monster through that. Obviously,
So that's kind of a fun way to like have the same idea from the original that you can't really use anymore, because people will still have the NFC capability in some everyday objects where they won't have music CDs. So this is another way to like use that data set to generate a monster in game. That's kind of a clever way to implement the same sort of concept in a modern day.
That because like that was the big novelty back in the day. As technology has progressed, it's been trickier to do that. So that feature will largely not apply to like people not in Japan. But so like where most of us here will just have to like rely on like the keywords, which is fine. It's not a big deal. So and like it's some of like the series familiar like characters that people may know either from the show or older games, like Holly is like will be in this one as well. The basic loop of the game, once you like you summon your first monster and you're learning the tutorials, is you put them through training drills that raise like several stats. So like it'd be strength, intelligence, defense, tech, speed, and so forth. So on this remote island, you can like pick like several places, and each like there's like maybe set like 7 different places that like correspond to each stat, and under each place there is like 2 training drills you can do. These selections are either like you can focus solely on that stat to do the training drill there, or there's a second one where you can like upgrade 2 stats but decrease one other. So let's say one of the activities is like trying to sculpt. Like these are really silly training drills. It's not like very serious. So one of them is like trying to sculpt like a pyramid out of like a mountain of rock, or just a mountain. So like, and it's like a pass fail type of thing. So this activity might increase like tech, which is like your accuracy. And then like another one might be like cultivating like a plant, like a farm, and that might like raise like tech and like intelligence, but like decrease speed. And so that's kind of the trade-off that like you do. It's like I can work on these 2 stats at the cost of another. And every time you do one of these training drills, like a week passes in the game, so you only have to worry about. It's not like a day by day type of thing. It's just like once you do an activity, a week passes by. And what you're trying to do is obviously get like your kaiju as strong as they can be to participate in tournaments, because tournaments is how you primarily make money in the game, and you'll want money to use for other stuff that I'll detail later. So as you're working on training drills for this kaiju, you can send them into tournaments, and that's where like primarily where all the fighting is done. And the fighting is not like super in depth, but it's in depth enough where it'll have 2 kaiju face off against each other for like your kaiju on the left and then the enemy kaiju on the right.
Like a fighting game?
So sort of like a fighting game. So because they do have health bars on them, and you can have a maximum of 4 like moves that you can do like at any given time, and like the repertoire of moves that you can do depends on like your position to the monster. So you have like an up close melee attack, and then you may have a mid attack if you go a little bit further back from them. Then you have like a longer range attack after that mid if you're a little bit farther back, and then you have like a long range attack if you're like really way back from the enemy. So its positioning is very important, and each of these moves costs a resource called guts, which is basically think about like MP in an RPG. You need this amount of guts to like fire off this move, and each of these moves has like an accuracy rating to them when you hover over them. So and then there'll be like sometimes states where like you or the enemy kaiju could be like in a confused state, and like and during this state like your accuracy increases. So there'll be like times where you may want to like hold off on like firing a move because maybe the enemy that you're fighting gets confused often. So you may want to wait till you fire off your next attack for a better chance for it to hit. There are also,
when you say an enemy gets confused often, is there something you got to like build up a meter, or is it just random? Like, how do you know when to prepare for that?
It feels like there's an element of RNG, and it feels like some personality types of like kaiju may get confused more often. I'm not exactly sure what stat affects confusion, or like how often a kaiju may get confused. I'm not exactly sure what affects that, but it for right now it feels like RNG because I'm not sure how that's managed. So that's the basics of combat. There is like more fine tuning that you can do. Where like a kaiju, like your starter kaiju may not like have like all the attacks that can cover all ranges. So maybe it'll have like an attack that covers like the first 3 ranges, like but maybe missing an attack that's like farther back, or some sort. So you have to like plan around like what are the ranges in which like your kaiju is effective at, and like what are its high damaging moves, what are the moves that like you can fire often at like less damage, and then you have to strategize in comparison to like the enemies. So like before you fight an enemy, you can like observe, you can like see their stat page and be like, okay, these are its attacks. Like you can see like it has a really powerful attack at melee. I may want to like keep my distance from this enemy so it doesn't have a chance to fire that attack off. Or hey, it doesn't have an attack at this range, but I do, so I want to stay at this range so it can't attack me back because it doesn't have an attack at that range. And then there are other like actions you can do in combat that aren't just attacks. Like if you're up close, you can like knock them back. These expend guts. And then there'll also be like a dash command where like if you really want to get up close and it's not giving you, it's keeping its distance and you can't keep up, so you can like dash up to it at the expense of like some guts as well. So the like it's like the fighting system isn't like really in depth, but it's like in depth enough to like make interesting decisions in the heat of battle. And obviously, there will just be some enemy kaiju that like they'll just beat you in stats alone, and you're just like, okay, it's not the end of the world if you lose a fight. It's just like, okay, now I have like a goal to work towards of like, okay, this is like my weakness. I should probably build up this stat on this kaiju over time. There are other things you can do. So like say like when you're getting money from these tournaments, like you don't have to always be first place in tournaments. Sometimes you can just like get a decent chunk of money being second or third place in them. And what you do with money is at the start of each month when you're raising a kaiju, you can like feed them several types of food, and these types of food have various effects. Like there's like a dependency stat, a fear stat, and then the most importantly like the fatigue and anger systems, where as you do training drills and battles over time with kaiju, their fatigue will go down. So you may want to. So if they're starting to feel tired, sometimes you may want to use that week to like rest, so they can just like sleep for the week, essentially, and get their stamina back up. Anger is also a stat that you have to manage, where like as you put them through more drills and like other stuff, their anger will go up, and you don't want this anger bar to fill out, because once that anger bar fills out, they go on a rampage and they get really mad, and then like you can't control them. So this is where like the Ultraman aspect of this comes in, where like if they go on a rampage, Ultraman or Ultraman Zero will like show up and like beat up your kaiju and be like, "Hey, you have to do a better job managing your kaiju. You can't have this shit." And they're like, "Okay, Ultraman." And like Ultraman is like has juice stats, and like you see him just like kicking the ever living shit out of your kaiju that's going on a rampage, as Ultraman does. And it's like,
So-
all right, Ultraman.
So does
and then-
Ultraman factor into the game at all outside of this mechanic?
Not really. Like from what I've played so far, it's mainly about the Ultraman villains, and Ultraman is basically just there if you mess up.
Basically saying, control your dog better, fucker.
Yeah, pretty much. It's like, oh fuck. Okay.
This is, I don't know, since I haven't played a similar game, this might be a bit of a stretch, but to me it seems like a modern day Mr. Rossetti, where it's just a character that only shows up for a specific sort of like action in the game, where it's like
Yeah, you're not wrong. So a lot of like people who played Monster Rancher back in the day will feel at home with this game. It's very much a Monster Rancher game at heart, even though it's like using a different cast for the most part because it's Ultraman themed. There's like, some new systems in it that could like potentially like go back into like a mainline Monster Rancher game and like be better for it. Like for example, when you're going off to a training area, sometimes another like kaiju will be invading your training area, and then you'll be like, "Hey dude, get off my training area," because as you train at a certain region, there will be like a territory meter. And if you max out that territory meter, you'll gain like bonus stats as you train up a stat in that particular area. So if you let opposing kaiju roam around there, that territory meter will go down, and like you'll potentially lose progress on like building up that territory meter. So you can be like, "Hey, get out of the way. What are you doing?" And also, like usually going to tournaments and fighting like opposing kaiju will bring down the anger meter on your kaiju. So it's a good way to manage that as well. And then kaiju will get passive abilities over time, like throughout the year. So like on its like when it's like turns 1 year old, it'll get a passive trait slot, and then like you can feed it a cookie to get like traits. So you go to like a bakery, and they'll basically like give you like a random statted like cookie that you can slot in, or you can try to gotcha for another cookie. And like when I say gotcha, I mean like it's just like they'll put like the cookie, they'll bake up the cookie, and whatever cookie comes out is like you can take it or leave it. And then you can, when you feed it to your kaiju, it'll be there as a trait, and all it is like the only resource you're using for it is like money, like a small amount of money. And
how many
there are other
kaiju do you like have in like control of progressing at once? Is it just one that you're like building up, or do you get like a team of them?
So at any given time when you're like training a kaiju, it's only one at a time. But this game has like over 200 kaiju, and so like you may be you can always like go summon another kaiju to like train up, and like leave your current kaiju at the association, and like you can switch them out at any time once you summon them. So you can like be like, okay, I want to like train up another kaiju because they might have like different strengths and different weaknesses. So you might want to train up this one because this kaiju may specialize in a different thing that like makes it better for certain types of tournaments or certain types of fights. And there's also a system in the game where you can fuse kaiju together. So like you'll get either like an entirely new kaiju or like a similar kaiju but like increased stats. So for example, like Gamora is like the first starter kaiju that you can get, but you can also summon like something like what is it called, like an Ella King, and you can fuse these together to make an Ella King Gamora, which is basically like the same model as Gamora, but like the texture of like Ella King, and like it may have like increased stats. But it may be more temperamental. It may have like a different sort of moves, and so forth. So there's a lot of like, this is a game that you can easily like spend hundreds of hours on if you really let it consume you, because there's a lot of like possibilities and ways like to like get the certain type of like kaiju that you want, and how you progress through the game. So it's just one of those types of games. It's really fun so far. I've been having a blast with it. But it's one of those tough recommendations that like you have to know what you're getting into, because like this is not a game that like you progress through like very fast. It's a very gradual process. It's like you're summoning new kaiju, training more kaiju, and that's kind of like the loop of the game. And as you progress, you'll like meet more characters that like you can actually send your kaiju to like to another character for like a month, and then you'll get like big stat increases, but then you're also like spending like a good chunk of money to like for them to do that. And then there's like a lot of like great animations in the game, where like just like through the training drill animations, and like when you send them off to like another trainer for a month, you'll see like your kaiju and their kaiju like do a race and like seeing who wins, and like usually one of them like trips, and then like another training might be like them trying to like anticipate like incoming attacks, so they have to dodge it. And then like it's a lot of like success or fail, but doesn't really matter, like, as long as they're like getting stats through it. So it's like it's really really packed with like a lot of like fun animations like that. And I think the only thing that really bugs me about the game is like the Switch performance. Like this game chugs on a Switch. Like especially
for
like
some reason, I just assumed you were playing it on PC. Is it a Switch exclusive?
Switch exclusive for now. I know the Monster Rancher, the re-releases came out on PC eventually. My friend was talking about those Monster Rancher re-releases on PC though, and there's like saying that the Switch version of them like runs better because there were some really bizarre weird ports, PC ports that came out for them. But for now, this Ultra Kaiju Monster Rancher is only on Switch, and performance is pretty rough. Like especially for battles, like when you like knock over an enemy, like that thing will just go to like 9 to 10 FPS as it's like it's being knocked back onto the ground. There's like debris coming out, and it also like lead to like the menuing experience isn't like that great either. It can be like it can feel unresponsive at times when you're menuing through it. But for people who are looking either for something different or like have like a lot of love for Ultraman, this could be definitely a game that's up their alley, because this kind of like a game that like you never really see. It's a very novel type of game in that aspect, and it's cool that that they're willing to like take reintroduce like a Monster Rancher under this guise. Even though I know some of my friends who are like big Monster Rancher fans, like I just wish they just made another one with like the monsters that I like, and I get that. But I think this approach works too, and like it's really novel and out of like it's very out of nowhere. And
so I'm reading some comments on the bottom of a trailer, and apparently, I guess this makes sense, but this commenter is saying that since it uses NFC, you can scan like Skylanders, Amiibo, Disney Infinity to generate monsters.
Oh yeah,
so that's kind of fun.
Yeah. That's I didn't think about Skylanders. It's like,
honestly, I feel like that's the closest thing you could get to the original like Monster Rancher experience in the modern day.
Yeah.
Even though the Toys to Life kind of fad is sort of faded, but I guess Amiibo are still holding in there. So there you go.
I wonder, like, I wonder, like, if they ever port this to PC, like, how that would work. I guess you could like attach an NFC reader to your PC, right?
Yeah. If it has NFCs and it's like very, very much a Switch exclusive right now, it feels like a missed opportunity where you should have, if you scanned like a Bowser amiibo, just giant Bowser.
Dude, that'd be fucking
I like
awesome.
that.
Yeah.
So I don't know how like does it work? This might be a green question, but if I were to scan like a certain figure and then someone else in the same game was supposed to scan a certain figure, would it be the same monster generated, or is it more random than that?
I have no clue. I would assume it's the same. I would assume it's the same monster if it's like the same NFC like code.
Yeah,
right?
me too.
Like because it's very reproducible. Like in like back in the day with Monster Rancher, like the PlayStation 2 games, people were like, "Hey, go get this fucking Jay-Z album, dude. You get a fucking cool ass monster out of it." Like there was an actual like real community of like just nerds buying like really niche albums and like singles of like music they don't even listen to just to get like the monster that they wanted.
Not I like the idea of like get this Metroid amiibo from Metroid Dread, and there.
Yeah, like I don't know if you'll like because of the keyword feature. I imagine that there's not gonna like people are gonna rush out and get that same sensation because you can always just type in keywords. But like back in the day when that wasn't an option, and you have to rely on like basically music CDs, like that was it was so cool. Like there was nothing like it, especially because like people were really into the Monster Rancher show as well. So it was like a magical time. It's like this is like it was like one of those things that like wow, this is magic. I don't know how the fuck they do it, but they're reading my fucking music CDs and I'm getting like a cool ass pixie out of it, you know? Yeah. I mean that's my brief time with Ultra Kaiju Monster Rancher so far. It's been a blast. I've been having a lot of fun. Just like revisiting a game series that like I haven't played in years, and just seeing it like all the modern tweaks to it, and like the collaboration with like Ultraman villains. It's like it's so like it's just like a mashup that like I would never have thought was even possible.
And it makes a lot of sense though, and it's kind of cool that it manages to keep the spirit of the series in a new format. And I don't know, Switch seems to be the sort of the system that allows kind of little niche games like this to thrive, where it might just be kind of buried under so many other titles if it were to show up on PC or something. So I don't know, it'd be interesting to see how well this game does.
Another game I'll briefly mention here is there's a closed beta for on Steam for an action RPG called The First Descendant. It is developed and published by Nexon. So if you know who Nexon is, then you know exactly. You're like, I don't know about this. Nexon is pretty much infamous in like the mobile game space for really aggressive, kind of shitty monetization practices, and so forth. But I checked out this game called The First Descendant, and it's kind of like at first, Nexon is a Korean company, just FYI. But with the comparisons I'm about to make, at first when I was looking at the trailers, I was like, this looks like Outriders. So between me and my friends, we like referred to this game before we got hands on it as Korean Outriders. It's kind of not that. I mean, it sort of is like with gunplay and like gun feel. It's a third person like shooter action RPG, like Outriders in that respect. And like you have guns, loot, and then like there's like character classes with like distinct abilities. But once you get to like the actual hands-on and what the game structure is like, it's more like a hybrid of Destiny and Warframe, but with like the gameplay of Outriders, which is it's I don't know. I'm mixed on it. I've only got a few hours into it, like maybe level 15-ish, so it's like maybe 3 to 4 hours into it. It's I don't know. It's very so how the game is like the basic setup for the game is like there are these this alien premise enemy called like the Vulgaris or something like that, and there's like this ancient war between humans and the Vulgaris, and for a long time though humans were able to suppress them, but then the Vulgaris got the upper hand once they got this new commander, which like wiped out a lot of the human population. So it's and then your main hub in this game is like the last city of humans. Like this is our last stronghold, you know. And you take on a special individual known as a descendant, because they are descended from like the special humans that had superpowers that were able to like suppress them way back in the day. I think that's what the story is. If not, then like it's close enough because that's what I got out of it. And so you're going onto these missions to suppress the Vulgaris threat. At the very beginning, you have 3 characters that you can choose from. There's like your standard shooty dude, which is like he's like your all rounder, has a grenade, has a buff to like give a grenade like a burn property and all its other stuff. Burn properties, another grenade where he can use them to once it's out, it can like suck in nearby enemies, and like his ult ability is like an arm launcher that like you can like start firing rockets from your arm for a bit. So that's like kind of like a standard shooty dude I went with. The other characters is like there's this lady that has ice powers that's like very offensive focused, and like a burly dude that's like a tank role. So he has like the shields, the healing fields, and so forth. I don't know if it's like healing field, but like a shield dome ability. And then there are other playable characters in the game, but how you unlock them is you get like character specific mats for them, and then you go to this like vendor in like the hub area, and like you put in these mats, and then you have to like wait like real life time for them to unlock. So let's say like there's this character called Bunny. So like you put in the bunny mats and whatever currencies it needs, and then you have to wait like 8 hours or something, 8 to 10 hours of like real life time for it to like build the character, kind of like in Warframe. And then it's silly, but so go for it.
So as you were discussing this game, I went ahead and pulled up the Steam page for it because unlike the other games where I'd heard of the title, but I just needed someone like you or Adam to just walk through what the game was. This game before literally 2 hours ago, I'd never heard of. So I'm on the Steam page for this game, the First Descendant, and it's obviously not officially released yet. You've been playing a closed beta. It was closed beta, right?
Yeah, it's a closed beta for a week. I think it's still. I don't know if you can still sign up for it on Steam because it's like one of those you request access on Steam and they just let everyone through.
But basically, I go to this Steam forums. People have strong opinions on them one way or the other, but the very, very active. Like lots of posts and chat within the last day, within the last 2 days, 3 days. So I don't know. It seems like there's a lot of people that have been having a look into this game. So I was pretty much ignorant to this game even existing, but it seems like a lot of people are. I don't know. So it seems like most of the. I'm painting with a broad brush here. Some people are talking about how the game's not well optimized and FPS drops, things like that.
Yeah, I agree. Issues. I had to upgrade my graphics drivers on my 3080, and even then, like I switched between medium and high on it, and even on medium, it's like it still chugs a little bit. I'm like, dude. I've been playing. I've been playing it on controller. It doesn't have like the best controller support, but it's the one I'm comfortable with because it has the Destiny style menus of like everything's a cursor. So like the inventory is just like you're using a cursor to move around. So with a controller, it's like okay, and it's your typical. Wait, go for it, James.
Can I just say that like menus that have a fake cursor are probably my least favorite thing in modern games.
So I do not.
You know what other game has a menu like that?
Batora
does. Where you go to the menu with a cursor.
It feels like something that devs want to spend more time focusing on everything else in the game. And I feel like the fake cursor thing's probably just easier for them to implement because it's like they can design it for like keyboard and mouse and then they just have a fake cursor. And then it's like, here we go.
Yep. So and that's like how the I don't like inventory in this game, but how your basic loadout is for like any of your characters. You can have up to 3 guns on you. There's all sorts of like different types of guns, like your assault rifles, your machine guns, your handguns, sniper rifles, shotguns, etc. There's like several different types, like bullet types in the game, like impact bullets, standard bullets. They're like all color coded, so like some of these bullets are more effective against certain enemies. The whole deal and so forth, and each gun has like its own like DPS rating, like item power rating. Like this, if it has higher number, you want to equip it because it does higher damage. And you have like other equips like accessories that like increase like your max health, your shields. And then there's this system in the game called runes, and like these runes are like there's like several types of runes you can equip on your character, like torrent runes, aerial runes, whatever, thunder runes, whatever. And these runes are basically like passive modifiers to like increase stuff like fire rate on like machine guns if you have them equipped, or decrease cooldowns on your abilities. So like and then you can enhance them. So like there's a sort of like customization and build you can go for your characters. But like most of this stuff will matter more as like you approach like end game and higher level content. Obviously, I don't have like the foresight to know exactly how it all goes. But like for when I was like watching a YouTube video breaking down what each character does, like for example, like a character like the character I mentioned, like a Bunny, for example, she's like an electric focused type character that is very movement focused. A lot of her abilities make it so like you always want to be on the move with her because there'll be an ability where like as she runs around, she's creating like an electric field like on where she's run. So you really want to be mobile with her, and she has like a electric pulse ability that like damages opponents near her. So you want like runes that really specialize in like move speed and cooldowns and like electric damage and so forth. So there's ways to like definitely like get the most out of your character's kit and abilities. Here there'll be like another dude that's like a pyromancer, and he focuses on like placing like fire fields on the ground. And like the more fields that he has, like his other abilities are like augmented, and then he has like a finisher ability that like will swoop up all these fire fields and like does a big explosion or something like that, you know. And then like for movement abilities, like in the like just general universal abilities for all characters, like everyone has like a grappling hook, and like the grappling hook is so weird in this game because it is like the it is like their solution for not including things like you can't climb a ladder in this game. Like there'll be like something like in the environment, they're like, that looks like something I can climb on. It's like, no, you cannot climb in this game. Just use your grappling hook to like get up. And so like your grappling hook, and like whenever like you reach a ledge, like you don't like go into an animation where like you're climbing up the ledge. Instead, like every time you finish like the grappling, like it'll like do a little hop at the end because they didn't want to like, I guess, dedicate the resources to like do like a lead like grabbing the ledge animation to get up. So you just
Yeah, I
like
was gonna say it sounds like they're just trying to get around from doing an animation. For that.
Yeah. So you grappling hook up at like any vertical surface, and then the little hop at the end. Well, hopefully you can like reach the ledge after that hop. You know. So it's like, okay, so it's like it's very weird and jank in that aspect. It's like, I guess. I mean, it's pretty fun that like the once you get like to the open zone areas, like there is definitely like some sort of like element of verticality to it all to like reach your objectives, and like the objectives are like your standard, like go here, interact with this thing. Some enemies will spawn. Go kill these enemies. Or there'll be like a thing you interact with, and like there'll be enemy waves. You take out this enemy wave, and then this object will be vulnerable for you to kill after a certain amount of time, and then they'll spawn more enemy waves and so forth. So it's like the quest design hasn't been like whatever. There is a way for you to like just open up like your current mission to like other people tackling on that mission, but I've been mostly going it solo so far, just to like kind of get a feel for everything. I like there's nothing about this that's like I feel is really special. I know there's like gonna eventually be raid bosses that have like targetable like parts that are like that are like its weak points, and then there'll be like, obviously like behavior patterns that like other friends that have gone far deeper into this, like, yeah, they like this raid boss has been like filtering a lot of people. So there's like some sort of strategy, like, as you play more of it. But I like there's not really a lot of like variety in like the weapons themselves. Like like out of like 3 to 4 hours in this game that I've had, like the most like unique weapon that I've gotten is like this pistol that sometimes like freezes enemies when I shoot it. Other than that, it's like your standard, like, does this weapon have higher numbers than my weapon? Yes, okay, I'll equip it, and then I can kill things a little bit faster. Um, and then it just has like all the trappings also of um like what Destiny has as well. So like you go whenever you log into the game, you go into the central hub, and then if you want to do a mission, you go to like you use like a warp point or like the map to like warp to a certain thing, to like an open area, and do like the missions there. So it's not. I don't know. I don't know if I'm gonna play more of it. I'm just kind of like over it and whatever.
What made you decide to play it in the first place?
It looked kind of cool, and like, I enjoyed my time with Outriders. Like, I know a lot of people like to meme about that game, but my friends and I had like a blast of that game. Like, we've all played like at least 50 hours of that game, when it 1st launched, and we had a lot of, it was passable. It was a fun time. So this game reminded us a lot of it, and then like when rubber met the road, it's like, yeah. I guess I'll put it like this, to like to the friend who put the most time in this game. He's like around like level 25 to level 30 or whatever. And he's like at that point, he's like, I was like off of work after hours, and then they wanted me to do something. He's like, and I was playing this game. He's like, I was thinking about this, like, I'd rather go work instead of play this game at this point. So it's like, oh, okay. So it's kind of like, and I'm not really like super into the game. Like, I don't necessarily dislike it, but it's like it's very. I'm sure I'm gonna dislike it as time goes on. I think because it's kind of like that same grind as you would do like in Destiny. Like over time, like you'll get over like how pretty it looks and how and all this sort of stuff, and you're just kind of like you're just doing it to like make numbers go up, and what you're actually doing isn't like exciting in itself. You're just like doing it to pass time. But other than that, that's like, and then like the only like cool thing that I like about it, like from a control standpoint, is there's not a lot of games that do this. And I don't know why, but this game has like the option to like set custom sensitivity to like weapon types. So like when you flip it on in the options menu, you can like set custom sensitivity. So like when you use a pistol, when you use a sniper rifle, when you use a shotgun, and like that's really cool. And I wish more games had like that type of like fine tuning in like controls.
I'm trying to think of a use case for that, but I could see like maybe for something like a grenade launcher, you want it to be like more sensitive, or something like a sniper rifle less sensitive, so you can have more control over it. It'd be just kind of cool to have the option just to kind of fine tune it, like you said.
Yeah, but that's I don't know if they have a release date for this. When you look at the Steam pages, it says coming soon. I don't know if that means it's later this year or sometime next year, but. Yeah, it's whatever. And this game does support English voice acting, and it's like it's not really great English voice acting either. It's just kind of like it's not awful, but it's like kind of standard comical type stuff. And of course, this game will definitely have like in-game monetization. I think there's like I don't know what you gotcha for, but there's like a certain like currency in the game that like they distributed through like the mailbox to participate in the closed beta. And I know there's like a Twitch drops thing where you watch a stream for like 2 hours, and they'll give you more of this currency. So this game will have like in-game
Twitch drops seem like
monetization as
super
well.
popular. I've played like I think both Guild Wars 2 and Phantasy Star Online 2 have had Twitch drops things, and whenever either of those developers announce Twitch drops, it seems like everyone's like super gung ho, like yeah, Twitch drops. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I dipped into that poison earlier this year with like Lost Ark. They had like mounts, like mount skins, or just mounts like Twitch drops. So I had to like learn how like that whole system worked. I was like, oh man, that mount looks so cool. I want it. And it's like, okay, is this how Twitch drops are? So you have to link this and this, and then you'll get it within 25 to 30 minutes. And it's like, okay, once after you finish like watching like 5 hours of this streamer or whatever, it's like, okay. And I know they've been starting to do that, like even with like Discord. Like Discord has had like it's called Yeah, like if you stream Monster Hunter Rise for like I don't know, like 2 hours
minutes.
or 15 minutes, okay, and then you'll get like a drop for your game. It's like okay, so it's weird, man. It's weird. We live in strange times and stuff like that.
No, but thank you, Josh, for going over two games that one I had heard of, one that I hadn't, for both Ultra Kaiju Monster Rancher and The Lost Descendant. So all of these are recent. Wait, the First Descendant. That reminds me of. That reminds me when all the Final Fantasy VII things were announced. I think Alex was writing some news articles, and it was like the first soldier or the last soldier or whatever. We kept getting the actual like preposition wrong or things like that. Like
what it's worth, the First Descendant used to be known as Project Magnum.
Oh, I didn't even
That's
know.
what it was known as before it got its title.
How do you have this nugget of knowledge? Like, how did you know that? You just know this?
Oh, well, I remember seeing the announcement for Project Magnum. Then I remember seeing the announcement for the First Descendant. I'm like, this looks really familiar. What is this? Like, oh, it's that other thing. It's the same thing. Okay.
I'm glad that Adam is on this podcast for his like human computer brain, just like recognizing all these things and being able to keep all this stuff straight.
I mean, I look. It's hard. It's hard. Okay, to me, this game. Before I knew the title of this game, the title of this game was Korean Outriders to me. So,
that's kind of how you described it. So, checks out. All right, before we go into the article shoutouts in the news, there's two other games here that I at least want to put a little bit of time to spotlight, and one of which is a game that is something that we talked about maybe 2 years ago that we covered on the site. Completely different tact from what we've previously been talking, and that is 428 Shibuya Scramble. So Josh first played this game back when it released and thought very, very, very highly of it. I don't know if anyone else here since then has played 428, But
James-
Chow,
I did.
James probably.
oh, James did. Oh, cool. Well,
Yeah.
maybe James and Chow, and of course Josh, go back and forth on this. In our staff Discord channel over the last week, I saw that Chow was playing this game, and he wanted to have a small chance to talk about it here. So I'll just go ahead and hand the floor off to him for a short bit. So 428 Shibuya Scramble, for those that weren't listening to this podcast 2 years ago when we first talked about this game, what is 428, and I guess what is your impression on it? Do you think as highly of it as its word of mouth seems to be for it?
Like, I haven't fully finished the game, so I can't give you like the complete rundown. But it is.
Well, first, just give us like an overview of like what is 428.
So it is a visual novel adventure game.
Mhm.
What is it? That's probably all I know. I just know it's from Spike Chunsoft, and I have seen the sequel anime that was done by Type Moon. How's that?
I had no idea there was an anime tie-in of any sort to 428.
So the big like thing that distinguishes it from like most visual novels and adventure games is like this entire game, like all its like backgrounds is like done with real screenshots of live actors, like real people. So like that's the thing that really makes it stand out, is like everything about this game is like it's from live actors and live screenshots.
So by live screenshots, you mean like photography?
Yes.
Live screenshots. That's what they
I mean,
call
yeah,
it now.
I'm thinking of like live action, so like yes, yeah.
Photos
think
are now live.
I think my favorite little fun fact about it is that they were technically breaking the law whenever they were taking like photos and videos in Shibuya for this game, because you're not supposed to take any sort of photography for commercial purposes in Shibuya. But if they didn't get caught, if they didn't get arrested, they were fine. So literally there's like an anecdote where whenever they saw the cops coming, they had to pack things up quickly and like literally run away.
Yeah,
That's kind of fun.
Yeah,
that is the law.
Yeah, that is the development of this game is fucking crazy. But yeah, that's the basic setup of the game.
So
Well, was James going to say something before you go on, Chow?
James?
All I was just gonna say is that I think that anecdote like ties in perfectly with the entire vibe that the VN has. It's like perfect.
Yeah, because it's basically essentially a mystery case, and then like to solve the mystery, you like take control of like various different like people who are involved in some way, shape, or form. In this case, whether directly or tangentially. Anyway, like I'm curious to hear like how far are you, Chow? I know I saw you like stream a little bit at the beginning again, and it made me want to replay it sometime soon.
I got to the part where I unlocked through 5 characters, and I basically got their to be continued part of the second part of the story, right?
Okay, yeah.
But like I could see why it's really high regarded, because there's a lot of like control that you can do in this game. Like not like directly, but somehow, like, for example, if you forgot to read the glossary at one part, you just can't trigger this event. And that had me stuck in the prologue for a bit, because I was like, why do I keep getting a bad ending? I trigger every single damn route, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're like,
You never read the glossary.
Because I didn't read the glossary, and it doesn't trigger this
That's
event.
kind of fun.
For example, like there's one part, the glossary highlighted a gun. It's like, why the hell would I read the glossary of a gun? I know what a gun is, right? But if you didn't read the glossary about the gun, that character will have, he doesn't see the gun as dangerous, so he will not try to stop the dude with the gun. And now you can't see the progress the plot, you know?
Yeah, this game is in some respects like a classic adventure game where it's kind of unforgiving about like you kind of have to. First off, like this game will have a lot of bad ends, and it's inevitable that yes, you will get bad ends. This game is very versatile about like where you can like warp back to, so you know it's not a big deal if you get a bad end. But in order to progress, like there'll be like certain things you have to do, like engage with to actually like continue moving forward.
My favorite anecdote watching Chow play this was I look over, he's streaming it in Discord. I have it on a secondary monitor. I look over and it says like bad end shot by a foreigner or something like that.
That's not my favorite one. My favorite ending was this one where this character decides to go and throw garbage, and it says bad ending. Your ending is garbage. That was the end title. It's like these endings are fucking hilarious.
Yeah, like the each character is quirky in their own lovable way. Like the very first one, the first character you take of is like this detective who's hot on the case, and like he's like a hard boiled detective and like very by the book. But like his quirky side to him is like he follows like a sort of code through this diary called the Dictum, and it's just a various like everyday sayings like always be on the lookout, or like keep an open mind. It's like Dictum number 48, keep an open mind. It's like some dumb shit like that. It's like, yes, of course. And like the second character you play as, that you see the perspective of, is like this dude who is like, he's kind of like he picks up garbage. He's like, he makes sure that the streets are clean, but he's very like serious about it. He's very like, I'm making sure that there's no trash on the road, making sure things are in the recycle bin. And he's very like, very gung ho and like takes pride that like, he's like kind of like he's keeping the streets clean. And it's very great that like these characters are very into their role and very like headstrong about it. And like there's like no, they're not like winking at you. They're like very serious about like and believe like even though it's ridiculous to us, they're very into it. And like one of the characters, like you don't even see their like in their head. They like wear like a mascot head on them.
I don't think you'll ever see it. And even if you do see it, it'll be in her back or something like that. You'll never see her face.
And it's like, and there's reasons why like those things happen. Like you actually get to see like the backgrounds of these characters too, and like why they like are like this. So like I don't know, I can never like I can't recommend this game enough. Like this, several years on, like this is still like one of the most delightful visual novels.
Is it mainly just due to the story premise itself, or just how well it's written, or
well, I know there's like good high praises to this game, and since I've seen the sequel anime, I want to try it. And the other reason why I want to play this game is because I would just want to get a hang of like trying visual novels in case if I have to review one in the future. So
I like this, like it's also training as well.
I guess
I like it.
It's like, I don't know, like the only visual novel I have imported in my plate that's coming up is The Witch of the Holy Night. So I do want to get a hang of it in case if I do end up reviewing it. So just want to get a hang of that. So, but yeah, I do love it. One of the things that I do like recognize immediately, I do recognize like one of the character is directly related to one of the characters from the anime, which is like because the story starts out with this girl being kidnapped and you only get to see the twin sister, but the anime is the girl that's being kidnapped. So.
I guess we should probably say like the name of the anime is Kanan, Canaan, Kanan.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you can watch it without this game because I've watched the anime and it barely made any connection to this game, but the characters are from this game though.
Yeah, it's very recognizable because like the artist from Type Moon Takeuchi like did the character designs for that game. Or that anime, and yeah, it's as you keep on playing, you'll see more and more how it ties in and so forth. But it's such a weird connection that you can experience both in isolation, not have to worry about one or the other. So it's not like a deal where like, oh, do I have to see both? It's like no, you can just like play one or see one without the other. You don't have to like see both to like understand both, which is the nice thing.
It is kind of jarring to see the real life version with the anime version. So, but
yeah.
But yeah, I'll see what happens at the end. I'm sure I'm pretty excited for it.
Yeah, I guess I must have been mistaken. Time is slipping away from me. I guess when Josh first played through this game, it was before we restarted this podcast. So this might be the first time we've ever talked about Shibuya Scramble on the Tetracast. So what better time than yeah? Because I thought this game released in like 2020, but 2018. So time, where are you going?
Yeah, the only reason I knew that it released that long ago was I remember playing this
before COVID.
Oh, in the before times.
The old world.
Well, now we've had an opportunity because of Chow to talk about Shibuya Scramble on the podcast, and It is something that we do have a review up on the site. If you want to search RPG site Shibuya Scramble to see Josh's thoughts from way back in the before times. Spoilers, very, very highly regarded, and a good review up on the site from Josh from the before times for Shibuya Scramble.
I also like it if people are like that, like saying, "Oh my god, it's like $50." Like this game goes on sale very often for very low.
I got it
prices.
for
Like,
$14, to be honest with you.
yeah, so I mean, like, don't worry, this game goes on sale a lot, so you can pick it up without having to spend a lot too if you're interested.
And the last game that we have earmarked here to talk about is one of our semi-regular check-ins for Final Fantasy XIV, with which both James and Chow do keep up to date on. Recently had the 6.25 update, for which we talked about on the podcast back when that was first announced and detailed. And just earmarked a little bit of time here for James to go through his experience playing through 6.25 and what his thoughts are on that for the newest Final Fantasy XIV update.
So the big change and update with 6.25 is twofold. One, we got the most recent tribe quest, which I have not done yet. But we also got the new content in the form of variant and criterion dungeons. And I'll just say that having played through the first variant dungeon, I can completely understand why patch 6.2's regular dungeon was probably the worst they've had in like years. Because the variant dungeons are so much better. And so the way it works is that you have dungeons in 14, they're linear affairs. You basically just go in a straight line. It was a little bit different in Realm Reborn, but ever since then, they've just focused on making it be an experience you can get done like 15 minutes. Variant dungeons, you still have like a similar cadence of like a couple of boss fights, a bit of trash mobs, and you go through it in about 15 minutes. But instead of it just being a straight line, there's multiple paths, and sometimes there might even be hidden paths you can take with dealing with some puzzles. And I'll just be honest, if every dungeon that they add to this game was like variant dungeons from here on out, I don't think anyone would complain. I really don't think anyone would complain, because it's like you kind of get a bit of, you have your cake and eat it too, because it's like once you make a decision, you're stuck. You're still you're on that track. So for all intents and purposes, it's still streamlined enough. It's not like you can backtrack and try and explore other things that you missed. So it's like the overall length of the dungeon is similar to regular dungeons, but for a bunch of players, like maybe myself included, where maybe we were a bit disappointed that dungeons have just become a straight line, it just gives a little bit more like substance to it. There's a bit more meat on the bones, and there's like actually some like give and take where it's like, oh, on one path you get a hint that helps you on another path to find a hidden route. And there's like all these different like interesting boss fights with interesting mechanics. And then there's like a hard version of it called the Criterion Dungeons, which is basically a savage difficulty like dungeon, like savage difficulty 4-player content, which people have been begging for something like this for years.
Now they're complaining it's too hard.
So
fuck them.
And so in the chat just now, as James was describing the variant dungeon, Chow put a flow chart in our little chat room, which is like a Visio, almost like production flow chart about how this thing can branch off. And this seems like, is this all one dungeon, Chow?
Yes, it's all one dungeon. Basically, it starts.
And this is one of the new ones.
Yeah, it starts with like 3 doors. You could go whichever door, and at the end, your boss will be different based on the door, and all the interactions all different based on the choices you make through the course.
And I like how some of these are like which door you go in, and other these are like, instead of starting the boss, you use these emotes, or kill drakes randomly, or kill the drakes big to small. So I don't play Final Fantasy XIV, but just reading some of these branching points, like how you trigger them, is like, how do people find out this stuff?
Yeah, like see the glossary entry for gun, and then we'll do something different.
But this kind of reminds me when I was playing Ion. There was this one dungeon, or like the endgame rating. There was a lot of like little conditions you had to meet in order to fight the super version of the boss, and it kind of feels like the same idea here. Like when Ion first came out, there was this super hard dungeon called Dark Poeta, which is basically like a time travel version of the first town you visit being completely decimated by dragons. And in that dungeon, you'll find your dead friends and all those things, like you have to like route it perfectly like a time attack in order to fight the ultimate boss at the end. If you don't meet any of the points, you fight like a weaker version and you don't have like the good rewards. And it has to be like really well thought out before you can get there. And I don't know how people come up with guides for those things.
But in this
Yeah.
flowchart here, there's not like an optimal route. It just seems like
There's
like
no
a
optimal
permutation
route.
of.
Just where it takes you.
Yeah, there's a mount you get for finding every possible ending for the variant dungeon, and there's like a little notebook that you have that will like keep track of which routes you've done. So you can get there's like a legitimately decent reward for like doing all of it, and then the Criterion dungeon stuff, which you can keep running to get stuff like materia. It's also a way you can get tomestones. Like honestly, like doing variant dungeons for tomestone grinding is probably the second quickest way to do it. The first quickest still being hunt trains. Because you get like 30 of the weekly tomes per variant dungeon run. And like if you're doing it with a pre-made, you can probably get each like run done in under like 10 minutes. So
I look at this flowchart and I'm like, man, this must be a lot of work. But actually, like if it allows them to reuse some assets and reuse some environments, but have a lot more replayability by allowing the little notebook where it kind of encourages players to run through the dungeon multiple times just to try out different routes. I could see this being like a kind of a win-win. They can reuse assets, they can kind of smartly design it and have it implemented in a way where players want to replay this dungeon a handful of times in order to see all the endings or all the different route possibilities. I don't know, it just seems kind of fun compared to the standard dungeons that you've described.
Yeah, and they said there's going to be more of these because this is basically this expansion's equivalent of Baza or Eureka, which were massive endgame activities for Shadowbringers and Stormblood, respectively. So they're going to be adding more and more of these, and it's going to probably be tied to the new relic weapon grind. So people are going to keep like playing this and like keep doing these dungeon runs for like the next year or so.
Nope, that seems pretty fun, and it seems like a good way to like keep players engaged with I won't say a small amount of content, but like a limited amount of content where they say, "Hey, we've designed this kind of neat thing that we implemented in a way where you guys can be encouraged to do this multiple times as we work on the meteor stuff with the next expansion."
They should have done like some sort of like choose your own adventure type deal with them, where it's like everyone's forced like a black screen text box, and they have to read like what they want to do next together.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you, James, for our semi-regular check-in on the latest happenings of Final Fantasy XIV. We'll keep it with James because one of the last games, a port of a game actually that came out in the last week, is the Xbox, PC, and Switch versions of Persona 5 Royal. Now, Persona 5 Royal is a game that we have covered extensively on the site back when both the original game and Royal first released, respectively. I guess here is my obligated shout-out that we do have a lot of guides and hint pages up on the site for Persona 5 for those playing it for the first time. But we have a feature up from the last week where both James and Cullen were able to look at the PC and Switch versions of Persona 5 Royal, respectively.
And Xbox.
So, did James play it on Xbox or did he play it on PC?
I put like 5 hours in on Xbox just to say I played a bit of it on Xbox.
Mm-hmm. So Persona 5 Royal is a game that has been well discussed in a lot of different contexts here. But here we do have the feature up on the site talking about the newest versions of the game. And so, James, I'll give you a small opportunity here just to talk about your time with Persona 5 Royal on PC and how you think it stacks up and what your thoughts are on it so far.
It's Persona 5 Royal on PC. Like I've only played the base Persona 5, so I've always been kind of waiting for a PC version to replay it. Now, granted, like on PS4 Pro, it's 4K 30, and for a game like Persona, you don't need more than 30 FPS. But it was one of those things where it's like, well, I'm not in a rush to replay, so I can wait, and so here we are. It's on PC. I will say a little bit of a nitpick, and I guess I can't complain too much because if we had gotten a Steam code, I believe you were the one that was planned to take a look at the PC version. We were sent an Xbox code instead, and even though we knew that the game was probably going to be Play Anywhere, we just weren't sure. And they specified it was an Xbox code, and I'm like the one person besides I think Quentin on staff that actually has an Xbox. So kind of just defaulted to me.
Well, I ended up spending the time playing Cold Steel 4 instead, which worth, I suppose. I'll get to Persona 5 eventually. I feel like Persona 5 might end up being like my holiday game where maybe you know about this. Does it run well in Steam Deck? I have not tried.
So I was unable to test personally, but it was playable on Steam Deck. Well, on Steam Deck at TGS, so we kind of knew it was probably going to be verified. Day one, it was verified, and people have reported that on max settings with even 150% render scale, it's a lock 60 FPS, and you get like 3.5 to 4 hours of battery life
on Steam Deck.
So so even if you like don't have it at like 150% render scale, like you have it just like at standard, it's probably like 4 or 4.5 or something like that. So it runs really well.
Yeah, I might grab this. I have a feeling this might be my holiday game. When usually I visit my folks over the holiday, I'll grab this on my Steam Deck and be able to play it in the hotel or at home on the couch or whatever. But yep, we also we don't have Colin up on the podcast here with us right now, but we do have a combined feature from both James and Colin talking about how Persona 5 Royal runs on both PC as well as on Switch. And seems like by all intents and purposes, the Switch port is also very, very good. So if you have a Switch and you're interested in playing Persona 5 Royal, seems like it's a perfectly great option. So you can finally play the prequel to Persona 5 Strikers, which unexplainably released on Switch well before Persona 5 actually did properly. But yeah, it sounds like basically no complaints across any of these, at least in our experience, across any of these new ports for Persona 5 Royal. And with our like round robin out of the way for all the things that we've been playing over the last week, we'll go into the news section. News section here is pretty light. It pretty much falls into two major categories here. We have some big updates on the Square Enix front, primarily focused on new footage for the upcoming Final Fantasy XVI, of course, a flagship title for our site's coverage. We do have some Falcom stuff, some release dates and release windows for upcoming series in English, for upcoming games in English for that series. And then we have a few other new trailers and updates for upcoming games before the end of the year. So we will start, of course, with the big headliner here in the news front, which is, of course, Final Fantasy 16. So in the last week, we got a new long story trailer for the game called Final Fantasy XVI Ambition. This is a 4.5-minute trailer which introduces a lot of new concepts, a lot of new characters. It's primarily a story trailer, so a lot of it is cutscene and footage in that respect. Though in the back half of the trailer, there is a little bit of gameplay footage, of battle footage. This trailer, I actually watched for the first time not too long ago. I didn't have a chance to watch it when it first released. And I think talking about trailers is always a bit silly on this site because on this podcast, because obviously this podcast is an audio format, and it just seems silly to say like, go ahead and watch the trailer because it's very, very good. But this trailer,
what you're saying is we should gather up everyone and then do a live reaction stream.
Oh yeah.
The trailer, that's the popular thing these days.
We'll put it on the list for the next calendar year. We'll have a reaction stream where we all get our webcam set up and react to the trailer. Actually, I'd probably die before I did that. But anyways, the Ambition trailer has been apparently pretty divisive because it kind of hammers home some of the points that we kind of already knew about the game. How it is there are no party members in battle. It's a single player action focused combat system. The art style is a little bit more muted. It seems to draw a lot of inspiration from Western RPGs like Witcher, which some people have, I guess, kind of already like staked where they stand on the direction that Final Fantasy XVI has taken. I kind of like this trailer a lot because it seems to kind of go back to some of the roots of some of the first things that we knew about Final Fantasy XVI, about the dominance, about the relationship between Clive and Joshua, and the dominance of Ifrit and Phoenix. Some of the characters that were. Oh yeah, the icons. Yeah, some of the stuff that we learned about on some of the more recent trailers, the dominance of Titan and Garuda. I'm pulling up. We have an update to our character basically dossier, where we got some new characters that were the icons of Odin and Bahamut, which are named Dion and one other. What's the other name here?
Well,
Barnabas.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I probably only remember like
and
two
then,
names.
Yeah, so obviously the main character Clive, and then we got Joshua, one of the first two introduced
Jill?
characters. We got some, yeah. Jill actually made a pretty strong presence in the newest trailer here as well, seemingly to go up against Barnabas and Odin. Barnabas being Odin's dominant here. We get some more footage of the icon versus icon battles. We get some more footage of the actual combat gameplay where it's Clive versus Garuda. It seems like, or at least not. It's Bendicta is the character who is the dominant of Garuda here. So this is the sort of trailer that if we wanted to, we could probably go like frame by frame and try to identify what happens in what order and what we can glean about this. The trailer goes into pretty mechanical detail about the 5 different nations that are in basically in play here. Obviously, we got kind of the home nation Rosaria, which Clive and Joshua are from. Also talks about the Holy Empire of Sanbreque, the Dalmatian Republic, the Iron Kingdom, and the Kingdom of Waled. So these are the sorts of things where I believe if you go onto the official website of the game, a lot of these kingdoms and republics are like formally dossiered there, and we kind of have like a key character representing each of these different factions. And essentially it seems like the events of the game kind of stir up strife between like existing animosity between these kingdoms, and it sets the world on fire, figuratively speaking.
Two things really caught my eye with this trailer. Like, I mean, it's an interesting trailer. It's nice. It's very pretty. But two things that only really got me interested in it. But it's fine. It's like, it's kind of amusing that each of the icon holders, whatever they're called, dominants, I think, I forgot. Before like they transform into like the summons, they kind of have like this hybrid form where like say Benedicta, for example, will like have like traits of it, like claws and the wings, but like won't fully go gigantic. Like, so you do face off against like the kind of like the more hybrid monster forms of them first before the full on big battle. It reminded me of like Devil Triggers from Devil May Cry, which is funny because they have the Devil May Cry 5 combat director on this game. So that was amusing for me. And the second thing that caught my eye is during the gameplay tidbits is they actually do have like the little capsules by your commands at the lower right hand corner, where like they do allow for like hot switching between like your elemental spells and actions mid combat, and that's how they're represented in battle, is like through these little capsules that you can toggle between. So if you need like a fire or wind layout against like certain enemies, you can hot swap on them on the fly mid combat.
I was gonna ask, did they show the Shiva dominance yet, like the actual person?
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so. We have
it looks like there's some rumors that it might be Jill, which kind of makes sense, but that's kind of also just like process of elimination. Like, well, she might be a dominant, and we don't have one assigned to Shiva yet, so there you go. But it seems like from what I can tell, nothing's officially official. But to Josh's point, yeah, I guess when I said that we saw gameplay where you're fighting Garuda, it's actually fighting Bendicta in her like devil trigger form of Garuda, and then there's a fight where you're fighting Hugo with his like semi-Titan form. But then there's also shows some combat gameplay where it's Clive against Odin, and just Odin. So not quite an icon battle at that point, though obviously we've also seen plenty of footage of all the icons squaring off in a major like one-on-one battle there. Ifrit versus Phoenix, and several others there versus Bahamut, for instance.
I do kind of like the concept of like having a multi-tiered like showdown. Like that's something that like builds up to like the climactic showdown. Like so like you're going through like phases of the fight as like tensions are rising and like stakes are getting higher in the fight. So like every like showdown with the dominant like feels like a big moment in the game, like a big like event. So it's something that'll happen gradually instead of like just like, hey, here's the first phase of the fight, and then like it'll swap out to its like second phase, like in the older turn based Final Fantasy entries.
Mm-hmm. And there's also a lot of focus on the story parts of this trailer for how the containing the essence of the icons within the dominance like plays a cost on the holder, where I haven't dug through this trailer frame by frame, but a character is holding his arm as it's like turning to stone, and then it shows another character who I don't recognize in bed, like having fully petrified. I guess I'm going to throw in this in chat. I don't recognize who this character is, who seems to have like overused their power and is now a statue. It's about at the 3-minute mark of the trailer.
Oh yeah, I don't know who that person is.
Yeah, but yeah, right before that, it shows a character grabbing their arm as it's like partially petrified, and based on the voiceover in the game, it talks about the costs that the dominants play if they overuse their magic and things like that. So basically, being a dominant is more of a curse than a blessing. Is kind of what this trailer is trying to evoke.
And this game is still slated for summer 2023. Nothing's new on that front. They didn't really reveal a release date or anything. It's still that release time frame, and like like a message from like Hiroshi Takai and Yoshida on like just the current status of like where they're at developing the game. Basically like that they're now like in the debugging phase, making sure that like everything's polished up and ready to go. So they still have a lot of time to finalize the game, obviously. So there's not doesn't if anything, it seems like the development of this game it's like it's shaping up to be way more stable than past entries.
Well, actually, I'm looking at Alex is the one that wrote up the news articles for this. He explicitly says that Jill is the dominant as Shiva. So maybe it's like all but confirmed. I'm not certain if that was ever explicitly said. I feel bad, but like
it's one of those things. Like I'm gonna play this game. I'm gonna not remember any of this info by the time I play this game because, and I'm fine with that. It's so far off that it's like okay, sure, whatever.
Based on the trailers alone, I am gonna say that the Blue Kingdom is the Kingdom of Scumbags. That's basically all I got from the trailer. I feel like they're the one that send the dragoons trying to do the assassination attempt on the main character. And
what if there's no good guy, bad guy, like clear cut, and everyone's like kind of initiative during this game?
No way. There's always an antagonist side. It doesn't matter who it is. There's always a side that you root for.
There always has to be a bad guy.
Like even in Gundam Seed, I was rooting for the main character to die, so technically the main character is the bad guy.
So there's always an antagonist, even if it's the protagonist. I don't know. But yeah, Final Fantasy 16, obviously a major title for next year, still slated for summer, like Josh said. I'd like to see more gameplay. You get a bit of it here, but I almost kind of want to see just like what does the UI look like? How do you like? What can you put on your character?
Release, but like it's like they have all the time in the world, like it doesn't.
They do,
really
yeah.
Yeah, but time flies. Okay,
it's not like this is like if this game was coming out a month and this is the only gameplay that we've seen, that we'd be like, okay, I'm wondering now, but this is so far off and like into a time frame that like I can't even conceive at this point.
I'm gonna ask you a question, Josh. Final Fantasy 16 or Trails into Reverie?
I mean, I know how Trails into Reverie is like, so I mean, this one's more interesting, obviously, because this is something I don't know about Trails into Reverie. I've played from beginning to end, so
they all have the same release date, summer 2023.
I mean, it's gonna be weird, right? Because I mean, we're gonna get to that news story in a bit. Thanks, Chow. But it's there is. I really wonder what the set dates are for these both of these games, because the overlap people are going to gravitate more toward FF16, obviously. So if Reverie's coming out too soon or close to 16, that'll impact, how it does.
We have a couple of other Square Enix related news bits from this week. One of which is a trademark filing, which our friends over at Gamatsu spotted as they're really keen on doing for two new Square Enix seemingly. Again, these are trademark filings, so we're extrapolating from a very small bit of data, but these are filings for SaGa Emerald Beyond and Emberstoria. So these are two trademarks that were filed in Japan. And SaGa Emerald Beyond, we don't know specifically what this is referring to, but we have talked about it on this podcast after the announcement of the newest SaGa remasters that they are still working on new projects in the SaGa franchise. The natural extrapolation at that point is that SaGa Emerald Beyond might possibly be the title of the new SaGa project that Kawazu and team is still working on. Don't know much other than that, but it's kind of nice to have a title to attach to it.
Big feature. Square Enix continues to release video games in the future. So,
I have a feeling with the SaGa game is each SaGa main game is going to be represented by a color of some sort. Scarlet Grace, as in red, and Emerald would be green, and we have another sequel that would be blue. It would be Sapphire or something.
I mean, but that's that's a very new thing for SaGa, right? It's not you think about Romancy SaGa, that's not tied to a color. Unlimited SaGa, that's not tied to a color.
I do wonder if Chow might be onto something here in the sense that maybe the Scarlet Grace style of SaGa games, because it is a very unique style of JRPG, maybe it'll have a color theme.
Yeah, so. I mean, if they somehow evolve, build upon the concept and evolve the Scarlet Grace battle system, I'll be fucking thrilled. Hell yeah.
Pretty much everyone I know that's played Scarlet Grace agrees it's probably if it's not the best, it's in contention for the best turn-based battle system of all time, and that's insane that it's so consistently agreed upon. Just
wow. I mean, it's very complex, but presented very intuitively. So I agree. If they're taking elements from that game and we should try to implement or evolve that, that's a great starting point. The starting point of hey, almost the pinnacle of turn-based turn-based battle system. Let's go. Emberstoria is an interesting name, though. I have no idea what the hell that could even refer to.
Yeah, there's really not a whole lot we can latch onto there. We got the name Emberstoria, which doesn't evoke a specific franchise in Square Enix's catalog, I don't think. So what does it mean? It's a very Square Enix name, I guess. It sounds like something they'd make.
It sounds like the name of a mobile game.
Maybe. I kind of think it sounds. It sounds like Harvestella, Emberstoria. I don't know.
Radiant Historia.
So, yes. SaGa Emerald Beyond and Emberstoria. We have titles that we don't have news to tack onto them. But I guess we'll keep those in our back pocket, in the back of our heads, and once these are actually a thing, whether they even become a thing, because trademarks don't always do, we'll revisit this and see what we were tipped off on with the filing of these trademarks.
I mean, at the very least, there's precedent. A Valkyrie Elysium, we first of know you because of a trademark.
That's true.
Barline, that was a trademark. So there's consistency with Square Enix here.
Maybe the time is running away from me and my brain just doesn't parse it very well, but it feels like it was super rapid where we had the Valkyrie Elysium trademark to the announcement to the game released, and now it's kind of in the rearview mirror already. I feel like that progression is one of the quickest that I've experienced of a game just kind of coming and going, even though once it comes out on PC later in the year, maybe I'll revisit that train of thought. We talked about this previously on a previous episode of the podcast, but of course, Stranger Paradise Final Fantasy Origin, which released earlier this year in March, is still going through its scheduled release cadence for its DLC updates. We have a release date for the second of its DLCs, which is Wanderer of the Rift. This is the DLC that features Gilgamesh, and then a whole bunch of other new features, and we got a new trailer for this, and this is releasing on the 26th. I might have already said that. Basically, I think Adam has played through Stranger Paradise. Josh has played through Stranger Paradise. I think James is the only one that played through the the first DLC, which is the what was the first DLC called? I'm blanking.
Trials of the Dragon King.
Right, and you were not very high on it, and you actually like wrote up a feature saying how you thought it was very, very poorly designed. Are you interested in Wanderer of the Rift?
I already bought the season pass because you can't buy the DLC separately, so I'll
There you
try
go.
it. And if nothing
So,
else, it's something I can write about.
It's just really weird, right? Because one of the features of this new DLC is there's a new Gilgamesh difficulty level that's only unlocked after you completed Trials of the Dragon King. So it is kind of hinting at, hey, you can't really play these, but like it's hinting that they're never going to be sold separately, because one of the things in it is this is directly tied to like a feature in this thing, like it's mandatory that you beat the previous DLC to even gain access to a part of this. So it's they're tackling on like a lot of systems that like I don't know if it doesn't really inspire confidence for me to like revisit this game and like try to wade through this,
It seems like the Rifts system, so the new gameplay mechanics, is not tied to difficulty.
Okay.
At least the phrasing makes it sound like it's not tied to difficulty. We will see once the DLC actually hits, and in fact, I might this weekend actually go through, because you said that I finished Trials of the Dragon King. I did not. I batted my head against the wall with 3 other people on Xbox Live on the very first fight in Bahamut difficulty for like over 2 hours until we finally got a clear. And after that, I was just like, I do not want to play this DLC anymore. And I was done. Because it's like, the way they had marketed it sounded like, oh, awesome, there's going to be a few new fights, there's going to be a new optional difficulty, and then like you actually get to it and it's like, no, all the DLC is you need to engage with the new difficulty mode. And like the whole crux of my argument with my article back then was, well, what's the point of having multiple difficulty modes in the base game if you're going to force people to play on this new, even harder than chaos difficulty mode for the DLC? And yes, you can just turn on this option that basically makes you invincible, but it's like, well, if you're going to let them do that in the first place, why not just design the DLC where the additional difficulties optional? It's just part of the fights are just part of the game. And regardless of the difficulty you want to play on, it'll just let you play the fucking game.
You'll be delighted to know, James, that one of the new features in Wanderers of the Rift are called chaotic monsters, and they're only available in Gilgamesh difficulty.
What's wrong with them?
I guess I feel obligated to say that I guess there's also a new randomly generated dungeon called the Rift Labyrinth, and a new class in the Blue Mage. So it's not just higher difficulty.
Blue Mage is like a weird new class because there's like a universal mechanic in the game that sort of already makes you a Blue Mage, where like you can like absorb enemy abilities and then fire it back at them. And this new Blue Mage class like allows you to like hold charges to make more like powerful versions of those abilities come out. So which is a weird, I guess, I don't know. It's one of those. It's like, why would you add a Blue Mage class when you already have a Blue Mage mechanic in the game?
Yeah, and it feels like they're almost trying to work like in the newsletter for this Wanderers of the Rift. They say you can do it without expending charges or MP as long as you time it right. So it seems like no, it actually is better. So yeah, it is possible to activate instant enemy abilities without using up charges and power them up with MP. So I have not played Stranger Paradise, so I don't quite know exactly like where that fits in, but it sounds like they're trying to say like, no, it's different, guys. It works slightly better than the existing mechanic, but I can't speak to it directly. But yeah, that'll be out in just a couple days. Maybe we'll talk about it next week or before the end of the year. People get to it, but if they don't, I think Adam said that he's planning on kind of revisiting Stranger Paradise once all the season passes out, which might be the better take. But we will see what we think of it once we have all these things out. And
Maybe
James or Adam or Josh.
release it out of nowhere on Steam one day, like a certain other title.
Yeah, so that's the last bit in our Square Enix little news rundown here. So last year in July, we had the release of Neo: The World Ends With You. It originally on the PC front was exclusive to the Epic Store. Once the year had passed, no news on whether it was a year exclusivity or what. But in the last week, on the 19th of October, we got a shadow drop for Neo: The World Ends With You on Steam. Just out of nowhere, no preamble or announcement, just there it was, and it was available.
I really don't want to put any marketing to this series, do they?
It's this is weird, so weird. Like there's a really badly timed release. It's great that it's there on Steam. It's just
the
really
day before
timed.
Persona 5 Royal.
Yeah.
You can say, oh, well, it's different audiences. People that would want to play Neo: The World Ends With You wouldn't necessarily want to play Persona 5 Royal. But it's like, yes, but there is a Venn diagram, and it's almost a circle.
Yeah. Just like when people are gonna say, "Hey, what should I get for like these games are expensive? What should I fucking get?" It's like, well, Persona 5 is like really popular, and a lot of people really like think highly of it, and there's a lot of praise for it. To the average consumer, it's like, okay, I'll just get Persona 5 and maybe get this other game later.
I feel like
both are great games. It's just like it's just a badly timed release, unfortunately.
I feel like it's important to note that going by SteamDB's peak concurrent users, Neo: The World Ends With You is less than 230 for peak. Persona 5 Royal is over 31,000. So like almost like 150 times more people are playing Persona 5 on PC than Neo: The World Ends With You.
That's way higher. Like when you tell me that Neo was that low, I'm like, man, that stinks. But I guess I'm not surprised. I'm surprised that Persona 5 is that high on Steam. I mean, not in a bad way, but
and keep in mind that's with all of the people that are going to just be playing it on Game Pass. Like that's not counting them.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's not counting Switch players. That's not counting Game Pass players. And
like if you go on like SteamDB and you check like the peak concurrent for, let's say, like another like game like Monster Hunter Rise, it's just shy of 200,000 or maybe a bit above. Let me check. But I do know that Monster Hunter World was like close to 300,000 or something like that. Like RPGs, especially JRPGs, are way more popular on PC than I think people know. Like, yeah, Monster Hunter World, peak all-time concurrent users, 334,000 players.
Yeah, it's one of those things with like, you know, it's just these are the Steam charts is like rough estimates, but either way, it's just like the numbers disparity is freaking huge, and it's like Square Enix. I just wish you just like let people know beforehand instead of just shadow dropping this out of nowhere at a really bad time. Just let people know like maybe like a week in advance. Like, hey, we're gonna release this like next week. Isn't that cool? This one is just like, boom, here you go. It's like, all right, cool. and of course, like you don't even have like the first World Ends With You anywhere else. Like that's not on PC either. So there's also a certain amount of people that are going to be intimidated by Neo: The World Ends With You because they know it's a direct sequel to the first World Ends With You. While they know that they know with Persona 5, like a lot of people already know it's like, hey, I can play this as a standalone game because these aren't like direct sequels. These games aren't really direct sequels for the most part.
Yeah, so. And setting aside the argument of did they market Neo: The World Ends With You enough, honestly, I think that's kind of putting the cart before the horse, because they did have the entire like anime adaptation of the first game that was also doubling as marketing for Neo. But I've seen some people say, oh, the reason why it's not doing well on Steam is because it was available on EGS and anyone that wanted to play it would have been. I'm going to be honest here. The last like 5 or 6 times I mentioned that Neo: The World Ends With You is on PC, people did not know because nobody fucking knew it came out on EGS. Nobody knew that the game was already available on PC. I've seen people with the Steam announcement that are like, oh, hell yeah, it's finally on PC. People don't really buy games on Epic Games Store. I think like Kingdom Hearts is like the one exception. That's got the Disney like boost to it.
Yeah.
Adam, I'm trying to remember.
Go ahead, I'm gonna tell like a friend to buy like FF7 remake because it was on Epic Game Store, and they're like, nah, I'll just wait for the Epic Games.
Yeah, because with Epic Games Store, it's like there's no point in like unless you absolutely need to play the game at launch. It's like, well, either wait for it to come out on Steam, in which case it's all in one place. And especially with Steam Deck being a thing, it's like I'm gonna wait for every fucking game that's on EGS to come to Steam just because it makes it easier to try getting it working on Steam Deck. But second, it's like waiting. It's like eventually those games are just gonna be free, or there's like a pretty good chance that it'll be a free game eventually, because that happens. Like, it's just. I don't know.
When there's Stranger to Paradise coming to Steam.
I don't know. Anytime between now and like till the end of time, because it could just shadow drop it at any time, you know.
Oh, shadow drop when Final Fantasy 16 comes out, and they'll be like, "Why did it bomb again?"
Hey, they sort of shadow dropped Final Fantasy VII remake also on Steam.
Yeah. I mean, they did have that like FF like 7.
Yeah, they had the stream event, and it was announced and dropped there. Yeah. So there was an event that people were looking forward to.
My bet for Stranger of Paradise is probably around the same time as the final DLC drops. They'll release it on Steam. That'd be my guess.
For those, if you're in the small crowd of people that was waiting to play Neo: The World Ends With You, and specifically on Steam, it is there now. It's on a small, like 20% discount for the first week or so. So it's like $45 or something like that. I closed the Steam page, but on a slight discount for the first couple weeks, at least. We have a couple updates for the upcoming remaster of Tactics Ogre with Tactics Ogre Reborn. Now, I briefly looked through these two web newsletters for the game. One of them is specifically focused upon the Wheel of Fortune and the Chariot, basically the time manipulation in order to reenact events and kind of change your route, as well as more class and character kind of bios and introductions. For those that have played the original,
I'm gonna let you in on a secret, Brian. I did that. I chopped them up into that because there was an asset guide on the press site that just had all of these like in one gigantic thing. And I'm like, I'm gonna do the same thing I did last time and just chop it up because it's a lot of info.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's almost weird how like what they've been doing for Tactics Ogre Reborn is almost being like encyclopedic about it, where they're like, we're just going to bio and provide screenshots for every class and every character, and we don't even need a fan to create a wiki on fandom or whatever, because we've got it here. Early on, when they're talking about specific differences between the original game and Reborn, I think we could glean a lot of useful information. And then we also got some more recent information about how the voice acting is and all the things like that. But when I look through your two pretty beefy news posts for the more recent updates about the Tactics Ogre Reborn marketing, a lot of this is just kind of like distilling the game to its most fundamental components. What is the Chariot Tarot? What is the characters? These are the classes and these are the roles they play and things like that. But it's not specific to the remake as far as I can tell. It's just how the game operates.
Yeah, there's also like a preview event to some outlets, not us, that released like videos on like how it's looking. They got like their embargo is like only up to like the first chapter, and even then, like people like Coffee Potato, who's like a YouTuber that's like lives and breathes like the Ogre series. Like they're a very excellent like content creator that specifically knows like the Ogre series from Ogre Battle to Tactics Ogre from inside and out. Like they go like they made like a over 1 hour video like going very 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 deep into like gameplay mechanics and like basically saying like this is like a really like good like definitive edition about this game with a lot of smart like changes and enhancements to the game. The like the stat cards that they have out on the battlefield and like a lot of the early leveling of like since like units can only have upwards to like 4 spells and skills on them, so they can't be like one man armies anymore. So you have to really think about like exactly like what your party composition is going to be as a party together, instead of like having a unit be able to do anything and everything, stuff like that, you know. It's a lot. It's like everything that they've shown, like both of these asset guides and everything that they've shown in like from other people have been saying in the previews, like this is a like almost like an entirely new game from everything they've done, and that's very exciting. Like they and there's a lot of changes that and enhances that they made to this game that really lets you key in on like the development team knows what the strengths and weaknesses were in like the past releases of this game, and they really wanted to like just enhance it overall, and that makes me very, very happy.
I was just worried about the leveling system, but that sounds like it's not much of an issue either.
Yeah, the leveling system has been largely like solved. Because like even if like a unit is behind in levels, you can like equip them with charms, and like there's like training stages as well that they just like catch up very fast on leveling. And they they tweak the balancing so like archers aren't like gods anymore, like always the default answer. Like coffee potato, when I was like watching their video, they mentioned like archers are like much more momentum based. Like they take a bit to get going. Like they can get really good, but they're not like crazy off the offset. Like they have to really build up to it to get their offense going. Now, so like a lot of like the news things that they've been showing off, like it's pretty much what you expect. Like obviously the chariot tarot is back, so allows you to rewind turns, which was it was not let us cling together, but this is like more robust in the way that they do it. Like from the start of the game, they let you go 10 turns back. As you progress more, you can throughout the main story, you can go further back, and then it's interesting how they do it in here as well, because when you rewind in Tactics Ogre Reborn, you can actually switch to the other one that you rebound from, like the state that you rebound from, and like you can like pick between like, do I like my situation previously or the situation that I'm in now with the changes that I made? And like that's really crazy when you think about it, that they allow you to do that. It's like, all right, that's interesting that they allow you to like analyze the situation and like favor like, do I like this outcome or this outcome, and like and then allow you to like switch between those. Um, and also the world tarot, which allows you to go back into like branches of the narrative and be like, okay, it lets you take another story route in the game, while keeping all your levels and skills. So like you don't have to like replay like a good chunk of the game to like get to where you want to be, like in terms of like story route uh and all that. So just pretty basic stuff, but very, very robust, and everything that I've heard about, like seeing the previews of the game going up this week, it's looking really promising. I'm really, really happy and excited for this game.
And that having it on PC will just be good for just like uh having it, in a state going forward where maybe you'll see a mod scene or at least a tweaking scene. I don't know if people will be able to like undo the art style, but it'll be good just for like preservation's sake, just to not have it locked away on a PSP remake or its original release. Having it in a place where it's accessible and available and able to run on modern on easy hardware and things like that, just so it's a great game that a lot of people have really high opinions of, including here on this podcast, and just having it more accessible for those to try out.
Yeah, I know. Like, still always like the main sticking point that people have for this game is like the pixel filtering, and like I
Right.
get it, but like everything aside from that has been like such like a big improvement that like I'm like willing to be like, you know what, the pros have vastly outweighed the cons at this point from what I'm reading. Um, and yeah, it's kind of like a little bit. I'm kind of sad for the game in a sense, because I'm very excited, but it feels like it feels like no one really shares that excitement for this game, because whether it's like the pixel filtering visuals or it's the high price tag. It's like, fuck, man, they're making like one of the like best fucking tactical RPGs ever, like so much better all around, to make this definitive edition. It's just, I don't know. As we get nearer and nearer to release, I'm getting more and more excited about it, but I feel like I feel like I'm the only one too.
Well, it
You're
just
on an
got like the
island.
stigma of a game that's released before. I mean, just look at like, was it Shimigami potentially free of the remaster. You know, it's a high price tag, and people can't really justify spending on it, right?
Yeah, I mean, also SMT3 didn't like improve like the game
I
system
know,
actually
but
like this game. You know, it's like
It might, and
very
I
much
also
low quality.
this might be a bit silly, but I also just think the way this game was unveiled, I won't say it damaged it, but it was just like it was leaked, and then it had a store page and all the other stuff we've already gone over several times. But it didn't have like that announcement where it was like it rocketed on out of a Nintendo Direct or something. It was just kind of like, oh, I guess they're making a remaster of Tactics Ogre. Oh, I guess it's confirmed. Oh, I guess it's dated for November. Oh, I guess they shared some screenshots. What's this filter doing here? Things like that. Where only nerds like Josh and us who are diving into the nitty gritty of these newsletters are being like, wow, they're putting a shit ton of work into this. And man, all the few weaknesses of the Let Us Cling Together version from the PSP, they're addressing here, and they're rebalancing it properly. And maybe the voice acting is not great, but we've got options there whether you want to have it or not. So only those that have looked past the initial kind of lukewarm announcement of this game into what they're actually putting into it are being able to like see the forest for the trees and be like, oh, this is something that they're really something that'll be good to have on a Steam catalog or an eShop catalog going forward, and say, yeah, if you want to play a really good tactical RPG from Square Enix, here you go. Tactics Ogre Reborn is there for the taking, and it's basically a high quality game and one of the best of the genre.
It's also wild how like Square Enix has just been on a tactical RPG kick for the last like year or so, it seems like.
But let's say if you're just a casual fan, you wouldn't know about those gameplay mechanic changes. I'll be like, oh, the pixel sprite looks like shit.
I know, like I know to the average person, they'll be like, oh, this is like an outdated gameplay. Who cares about turn-based games, especially strategy RPGs? Let alone it looks like shit compared to modern games.
And they wouldn't
So,
know all
these
like technical changes, which is a very good change, but they wouldn't know about it.
I know.
Which is sad, but it is what it is, I guess.
It's okay. I'll be Tactics Ogre Reborn strongest warrior if it's like amazing again.
Don't worry, I'll buy 2 copies of this game. I'll support it. I'll see a question, Josh. If they remastered Final Fantasy Tactics, will they nerf Thunder God Sid?
If they have the same mentality of like retweaking it like with Reborn, I think they would.
Oh no!
If they want to make it more interesting tactically instead of like the mainstays, I think they will. But that requires like the right development team for it, which it seems like Tactics Ogre Reborn does. So if they have like the same like similar staff working on that and coming into it in that mindset, then yes.
Oh no, not my Thunder God Sid.
Yeah. I'm thinking of like what am I gonna do if they're so it's like archers have been nerfed and reborn, and I assume like ninjas will as well. Like what am I gonna do without my archers and ninjas now?
And of course, as we have several times over the last couple months, we have a small section here for the upcoming RPG Star Ocean: The Divine Force here at the tail end of Square Enix's section of our podcast. Not a lot of new information here. We talked last week about the newest mission report, Mission Report 4, and all the details there. This week, we were kind of wondering where the final character trailers were for both the mysterious JJ as well as the red-haired character that showed up in one of the mission reports. I forgot if we got a name at the time, but when the character trailer, it is Theo Kremlert is the red-haired character for Star Ocean: The Divine Force. So we got a character trailer for both Theo and JJ. If you remember right, JJ, we got an initial look in with some of the gameplay footage. We're like, who is this like mechanoid samurai character in the party named JJ? Is he just like a temporary character? Well, nope, you got a full character trailer for him as well. Both of these character trailers, as of the time of recording, have only shown up on Square Enix's home YouTube channel, so they're only in Japanese at the moment. It seems like there's a bit of a delay getting those out in English as well. The character trailers themselves, as has been the case, are not inherently that interesting, but it kind of outlines who the party members will be. So with this, I believe we're up to 9. Is it 8 or 9? I think we've got the full cast here, though.
I think yeah.
So all of the characters that have been introduced as likely party members and throughout the mission reports have been fully, I guess, biography through these character trailers now. And then the only other tangential information that we got for the Divine Force, which releases next week, is we got the opening movie for the game featuring Japanese, I believe, rock singer Hyde. So I don't have any personal attachment to Hyde, but he is featured on this opening movie trailer for the game.
Go Hyde,
So
let's go.
Yeah, so this opening movie trailer is pretty silly, pretty hype, but it's there if you want to have some excitement for the game building up before the game's release next week.
Are you
Now that we've
excited?
got all the characters,
It's finally here. Are you excited?
apparently
That
not.
doesn't sound much exciting.
All right, Adam.
Oh, I thought you were just talking in general, not to me.
Well, I asked you. I was like, "Are you excited? Are you excited, Adam?"
Sure.
That's
he's
the
still-
sign of someone who's really excited.
I think he's traumatized from Star Ocean 5.
But yep, Divine Force next week. Maybe we'll be able to talk about on the next week's podcast. Potentially could be the week after, depending on how if we get access or not before its release date. But of course, a game that's on our radar from a few different people here on the cast. So likely be able to talk about the game for real soon. At the tail end of our news section here, we have a few headlines for some upcoming Falcom stuff. We've talked about Falcom and the Legend of Heroes, the newest releases in a few different contexts over the upcoming weeks. A couple just minor updates here. We do finally have an actual release date for the English release of Trails to Azure. Of course, just last month, we got the Trails from Zero official English release. Trails to Azure will launch on March 14th in North America, March 17th in Europe. I guess March 24th in Oceania. And Nice America then also released a story trailer for the game. Actually, is this a new story trailer or is this the one they released a while ago? Because I know they kind of like preempted themselves here for the Azure story trailer.
I don't remember. I don't keep track of like what if they're the same trailer. I just know this was like a new trailer with the release date. I don't know if it's like what the
Gotcha.
footage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this trailer is new. It got uploaded on the 17th of October. So this, I think, is the less interesting of the two announcements from Nice America, because we kind of figured that Azure would show up around this time frame. But we also got a release window for the upcoming Trails into Reverie, which we also knew was coming in 2023, but it is also a summer release, as preempted by Chow when he talked about the summer release also for Final Fantasy XVI. So I had kind of been, I don't know if I've been ignorant, but I have been kind of treating Trails into Reverie as kind of a typical autumn release for Nice America, but no, it'll be a little bit earlier in the summer. So we will have Azure, and then not too many months later, Reverie as a summer release for the series. So I think this is kind of good. It shows that they kind of are releasing these at a brisk cadence. I don't remember if it's happened as of the time of recording, but I do know that Nice America was having like a voice actor streaming event for the upcoming Trails into Reverie.
Yeah.
Oh, it was yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was great because the voice actor of Randy did a line read of a very infamous Trails from Zero Geofront line.
Bravo.
Yep.
Well, did he do that? Oh, that's actually
Yes.
kind of fun that Nice actually allowed him to do that on an official stream.
And the funny thing is that nobody asked him to do it. He was just asked, is there like a favorite line that he wasn't able to do? And he brought it up on his own.
That's kind of fun. I don't know. I like that. I'm smiling hearing that.
There are some other good news with it too. The localization editor, Hatsu, is back working into Reverie.
They go by Leona Renee now. So that's fantastic. You know, she did like a lot of amazing work when the Trail series was
back at Xseed.
Yeah. So you know,
it's especially great for voice direction because and I'll probably get some heat for this, but I remember when I played through Reverie's Japanese version, Hajimari, that was the first time I was going to hear the Cold Steel cast in Japanese. But I remember hearing like way before then that like a lot of people really swore by, oh yeah, the Japanese cast is way better. The Japanese voice acting is way better. Then I actually listened to it and like Hajimari, and it's like, I think I prefer the English dub. And I'm usually a sub first type of guy, but just, I don't know. It's like, it'll be nice though to have the original voice director for Cold Steel 1 and 2. And did she do stuff for 3 or was because I know
if I remember right, she was contracted for 3 in a small capacity.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she kind of dropped due to personal reasons, I think. But
yeah, she got sick and then she was unable to work as much during the period of it, I think. And then like Cold Steel 4 there was like COVID, so it was
it's
very much yeah.
But
Yeah, I know
about the voices, though, I was gonna say I do agree with you with the voices, sort of, but I do like the cast, like the female cast more than was it in the Japanese version more than the English version. But I do like the male cast of the English version way more than the Japanese cast.
I will say the one thing that kind of shook me is that I remember like when I really did not like Lisa's English voice. So I was like, oh, I can't wait to hear her in Japanese. And then I heard her Japanese.
She's even more annoying.
Oh, yeah. It's like she's got like a gravelly. It sounds like her VA in Japanese smoked cigarettes for like 10 years, which is weird because she's got that gravelly sound to it when she's supposed to be like 16 or 17 in Hajimari. And it's like, you sound like you are not well. Are you okay?
Oh no, James.
Probably an example of a good voice actress or seiyuu in that case, but just a bad casting, which happens. Which luckily we have options now in most cases about playing it in Japanese or English. So a summer release for Reverie. I guess it's good that I decided on a whim to start playing through Cold Steel 4, so I don't have to like have that in front of me before I'm allowed, quote unquote, to get to Reverie. I was originally planning on playing through Zero and Azure again with the official English releases, but at this point I'm saying no. I played them recently enough with the GeoFriend translations. I don't want to play through 3 Trails games before next summer because at that point I would get worn out. But I'm genuinely excited for Reverie because based on all accounts from those that played it already, it seems like it's a good bounce back for the series. It's a reasonably good send off for that arc. For that, basically, that period of the Legend of Heroes series, of the Kiseki series, before we go into, of course, Kuro no Kiseki, seemingly following after that.
Question:
the only other
Kuro by 2023?
I'm guessing Kuro will be early 2024. That's a little bit optimistic, but if they're pushing Reverie to be a summer release, I don't think it's going to be Kuro holiday release. I think that's too shooting.
Yeah,
but I could see it being early 2024.
I will say that there was like a leak for like, I think actually, I'm not sure if it was like part of the NVIDIA GeForce Now thing or if it was something else, but people kind of got leaked release windows for the games, and so far it's matched up, and the release window for Nayuta is like late September, early October or something.
Huh. Well, we'll see if that comes out and ends up being true in these cases, but we've talked in a lot of different contexts about how Nice is going to need to handle trying to quote-unquote catch up for all the Falcom releases, and it sounds like they're doing as admirable job as they can. I know people have different opinions on how well their actual localization efforts are, but I think no one can complain about Reverie being a summer release and Azure being out not too many months after Zero and getting both the Crossbell releases out officially in English rather than just skipping those in pursuit of getting Kuro out sooner. So kind of one of those things where
I want Azure, Reverie, Kuro, and Kuro 2 in English next year. What are you talking about?
Give and take. I know you're being blithe about it, but I think considering the constraints, their options were to skip Crossbell entirely and have that just be kind of like a weird void era that people have to like glean from a fan translation or on a wiki, at the expense of Kuro being pushed out a little bit. But
yeah, and I'll just say this because I've seen some people on my timeline. It's not one specific person I'm calling out here. It's like multiple people. I can understand being upset that the Crossbell releases have taken so long, but you have to consider 2 main things. The people that you want to do Reverie's translation justice have to be familiar with Crossbell. And what Nisa probably did is they probably when they did their second editing pass, well, their additional editing pass with Zero and Azure, is they probably had the same editors that were going to be working on Reverie do those first. So that's probably why Reverie's translation's taken so long, because if you want to make sure that you're catching all of those references, and keep in mind, not only is like, we can have arguments like until everyone's blue in the face about where you can start with the Trails games, but there are specific entries in the series that you have to have played previous games to get to. Like Trails in the Sky the Third, you have to play FC and S Seed. Obviously, Azure, you need to play 0. Obviously, Cold Steel 4, you need to play Cold Steel 1 through 3. Reverie, you need to have played everything. You need to have played specifically Crossbell and Cold Steel. You could technically not play Trails in the Sky, but if you're going to be playing that many games to begin with, play Trails in the Sky. But it's like, I can sympathize with NIS America here, because even though it's taken long, and you could argue maybe a little bit too long, I can understand the thought process that might have led to this. Because if you really want to make sure that the translation for Reverie is as good as it can be, this was the only way they could have done it. And I'm not sure if Josh or Chow agree or disagree, but
I would agree, because there will be a sense of community. Because if you switch editors, they might not translate certain reference as the same, and it probably causes a lot of issues. You know, it's better to have that one person working in the thing for the whole.
I mean, the one thing you hear very consistently about localization and localization editors and anyone who's involved in localization, like one of the biggest piece of advice they always say is make a glossary. Make a glossary. It'll make your life much easier, because glossaries allow you to get consistency out of, like, say, long running series and like agreed upon terms, etc., etc. And the weird thing here with with the Trail series, how it was handled from like Xseed to NIS America, you basically, if you're gonna go with a new team, like localizing these, like, it's gonna be hard try to get consistency from scratch one, like from square one. You have to refer to a glossary pretty much that was like built up over time and with agreed upon terms, and for consistency's sake and for accuracy's sake. You know?
Yeah, and like, even if it's not quite the same people doing the editing for Crossbell and Reverie, it's still a case of, before you start really editing Reverie or even translating, hopefully, you'd want to make sure that you have all of that shit in the glossary already, and that means that you have to go through that pass with Crossbell first.
And yeah, you nothing is perfect. Also, like, so remember when Xseed had to change Zin's name from Zane to Zin?
Yeah, it was Zane to Zin and Hummel to Hummel, I believe, were like the two big ones. Or what was Hamel initially? I don't remember. It was something different. Yeah. Hummel.
They had some issues back in those days. I mean, there were like characters that had like Oriental origins, and they had like Oriental names, and they were changed into like generic English names too. So
yeah,
and that got corrected when they were re-released from the PC versions, but the PSP for those issues.
The handoff from Xseed to NIS hasn't been perfect, but considering how it could have ended up, the fact that Xseed like updated their PC releases with a more accurate like translation for places like Zin and names like Zin and Hamel, and then it's been consistent through NIS America's releases. It's, at least from an outsider's perspective who's not in as deep and doesn't play the games in Japanese, it could have been a lot worse. And I think it's turned out all right. And especially now that we're looking at Reverie and it's getting a simultaneous release on PC, Switch, and PlayStation consoles, where 6 years ago that wasn't the case. You would have these weird staggered releases, and I remember Adam having to like write news stories like, here's the release date for Cold Steel 2 on PlayStation, and now on PC, and then on Switch, and oh, by the way, here's NIS America's release of Cold Steel 3 on Switch later. And now that it only has one release date tied to Reverie in English, obviously the gold standard would be to, at some point in a Paradise or an Elysium or whatever, have simultaneous releases. Who knows if we'll ever get there, but the fact that we don't have these new staggered console shifts based on different publishers or whatever, we're in a better place now than we were, in my opinion.
Can I get on? I guess I was already a bit on a high horse for a bit there, but there's one thing I do want to say that kind of grinds my gears quite a bit. obviously, NIS America has their fair share of issues with localizations. Like, everyone knows this. It's well understood. The thing that gets me is that when it comes to Trails specifically, there's a number of reasons why we're in the situation we're in now. But would this cross-spell problem have even been a problem where we had to wait for a company to go through cross-spell if the way that Trails in the Sky second chapter was handled back in the day was handled better? Because I feel like people forget exactly how that went down, where Xseed, because they wanted to focus on Ever games, because like first chapter almost bankrupted the company because it was on the PSP. It did not do well at all. They had Cart Folger handle the translation at first. And what ended up happening is that by the time the deadline for Cart Folger came, like, the scripts weren't done. And what they had there, they basically had to redo the translation from scratch. So, like, completely ignoring the issues they had with, like, getting first chapter and second chapter on PC at the time, that was, like, a wasted, essentially, 2 years, because the first entire, like, translation that they were expecting was a wash, and they had to redo it from scratch. And 2 years doesn't sound like a lot, but when it comes to like localizing games, when you're trying to catch up, that adds up.
And
No, I mean,
I'm
I'm not.
last like 8 years. The generation usually goes.
Yeah.
And they pretty much missed that window. I mean, if they were able to translate that window, I think we might be seeing something different. We might even end up seeing the crossbell games being released on the Vita with English localization.
No, that would have never happened.
You don't think
That
so?
would have there's other extenuating circumstances with Xseed that they wanted to do the crossbell evolution games, but there was reasons why they could not.
Oof. Fucking Kadakawa.
I'm not, I'm not surprised.
It's a lot of like, yeah, sure, like could have, would have, like if things happened differently. But but
I'm not blaming any one individual company here. I'm just saying that when people strictly lay the blame at Nisa's feet, like, I understand the frustration. I understand that the argument that maybe things could have been faster, but when you like look at the history that this series has had in the West and everything that's led up to this point, and you really think about it, it's like, yeah, this sucks, but for the purposes of a better translation for Reverie and to make sure that these two crucial games for the series history aren't just locked to, oh, well, you better have a PC, you better be fine with fan translations. Like, people that say, oh, they should not have done crossbell because anyone that cared would have played the Geofront patches. What is wrong with you?
I mean,
like, what's wrong with you?
I mean, those people are unreasonable, and like you'll never change their minds. That's the thing, right? Like they won't spare another second thought on it, and that's a shame. But these people are married to their opinion, and they're about it.
Well,
So,
I don't want to drive this.
For me, I'm not gonna like. I don't really like to dwell in the past about it. Like the history of the series, both and
the Kiseki curse
and all the localization woes and the stories behind that, and the real tragedies behind that. Honestly, like there are very dark times that across that whole entire era.
Oh yeah, I would like to say as an aside, I'm very glad that Cart Folger, at least I forget the name of the exact person, but the person Andrew, I'm glad that he seems to be in a much better spot right now. And didn't he do like a translation for a Super Robot Wars game like a year and a half ago or something like that?
I think he was involved in like I think it was either T or 30, but like he was involved in that in some capacity and did a fantastic job. So it's just like the stories about that are about his unfortunate experiences like during that whole localization process of second chapter. I'm glad that they're in a very very much better place these days, and was able to see today from that. And like I said though, like it's just this is reality that we live in now, and like Brian mentioned earlier, like I'm glad that like it's at a state where like where we could all like move forward together, and that's fine. Like and eventually, come hell or high water, this just trail series will end one day in Japan, and one day, all of these games will be localized and be available, and people can put it behind them. That's the real excitement I have, is like one day all this will just be
This
stored
nightmare
history.
will eventually end.
And hopefully, somewhere in the future, Falcom and its localization partners can get their pipelines together and like be able to maybe feasibly see a simultaneous worldwide release moving forward. As many other companies have transitioned into these days. And to me, I think about an optimistic future, and I don't like to dwell on the things that already happened, things that we can't change. So that's how I see the situation. It's like, well, we'll get there. It's no big deal. Like, we'll
As
get
as
there.
rough as it is now, I do believe that when you like lay everything out and you can kind of see why these decisions were made the way they were, you can tell that was for the purposes of, look, this blockage was always going to be there. We can't ignore it. We have to deal with it now because it'll also help with the translation quality. Once we get past the bump that is Crossbell and Reverie, hopefully we can start really catching up. And like looking at the release cadence that they have lined up, like Kuro in early 2024 seems like it might be possible. And that would certainly be,
Think of it. It's 0, Azure, and Reverie within a calendar year. Like, can't ask for much better than that for a pace to try to keep up.
If they released them any faster, it would literally just be like eating their own sales and whatnot. So
Yeah, and if you also think about East America is not a Falcom, not beholden to Falcom exclusively. They have so many other projects that they have to prioritize and work on.
Except they've been prioritizing Falcom. That's the reason why Galeria is only coming out early next year.
I know, but
Disgaea 7.
It's more than Galeria. It's more than more than Disgaea. They have a lot of other
Monster
shit.
Menu. They've got they're starting to release some of their adventure games, like their NIS and stuff. I mean, whatever growing pains, or I want maybe not growing pains, whatever issues NIS America might have when it comes to sloppiness of localizations here and there. It's at the end of the day, their own games, they're one of those smaller companies where there's really not that many really small AA, not even really AA. There's not really many companies of NIS's size that so consistently puts out such experimental titles consistently. And it's just focusing on NIS America's work on Falcom stuff, it feels kind of unfair to everything else they're putting out.
That's kind of a good point. The last bit here, and we won't dwell on this, but NIS America did also announce that in spring of next year they will be releasing East 9 Monstrum Nox on PlayStation 5, which I don't know how significant this is because you can already play Monstrum Nox on PS5 with its PS4 version upported, but this will just be a native PS5 version for the game next spring.
Yeah,
and they released
they're just for people who haven't played it yet. This definitely not for people who already played it, in some way, shape, or form. It's just sure, why not? It's a good RPG. So for people who want to play a decent action RPG on their PS5, here's something for you.
Yeah, I even asked NIS America about this because they had this Discord little press thing where they announced this or ahead of time. And I asked, well, isn't the PS4 version 4K 60 on PS5 already? So is there graphical updates or anything? And Alan Costa, one of the main people over at NIS America, said, this is very explicitly not for people that already own East 9. If you already own East 9, of course they'll want you to pay for it if you're willing to. But they outright told me, if you already own East 9 and you own a PS5, there's no real reason for you to buy this.
Oh yeah, this reminds me about a little fun fact about this news story. So in the press email that we got, there's gonna be like your typical like, hey, this will bundle all the previously released cosmetic DLC that came out for this game, and the first version of the press email they specifically worded it as it'll bundle all the cosmetic DLC that came out on PlayStation 4 and PlayStation Vita. I'm like, did this game come out on Vita in Japan or something? I had to go double check.
I loved playing it at 5 FPS whenever I was exploring the city. Obviously.
Yeah. And then they had to update the thing to be like, oh, on all previously released platforms, taking out like that hiccup of like, because obviously they probably just like copied and pasted it from like the East 8. Yeah. So that was funny. That was like, wait, did this come out on Vita? I'm like, no way.
Do we know if East 9 PS5 is going to be full price or if it's going to be like 40 or something? Because
I have no clue. They didn't say the price tag for this. I have to imagine it has to be. If East 8 is like on a discount, like $40, then I assume will follow suit. So whatever the price tag is for East 8 on PS5 is, I assume this will have the same price. I think that's discounted.
Actually, what am I talking about? If I'm going to get this, I should get it on PC. I already own a PS4 copy in Japanese.
Yeah. So play it on your Steam Deck.
Yeah.
Only a couple other small headlines here. One is we learned a couple weeks ago about how the January, I believe it's January, One Piece Odyssey. That is January, right?
Yes.
Yep. Yeah, so One Piece Odyssey coming out in January. We learned that not only will it be an original story, but it'll have some sort of memory sequence where the cast of the show can relive their events of the Alabasta arc from early One Piece. Well, we got a gameplay trailer basically showcasing that stuff. And it's quite a long trailer. It's 7 minutes of gameplay from the Alabasta area of One Piece Odyssey. And it pretty much, like, whenever we see trailers and I say, like, I wish we saw more raw gameplay, I wish we saw what the UI looked like, I wish we saw what the battles look like, that's pretty much what this game is. It showcases just, like, using abilities in battle, what the battle victory results screen looks like, how undertaking side quests looks, how just exploring the fields looks. So this is truly, I know sometimes publishers will release quote unquote gameplay trailers, but they'll make it like as cinematic as possible. Well, this isn't really that. This is a gameplay trailer like through and through at its heart. So if you're at all interested in One Piece Odyssey, I would suggest taking a look at the Alabasta gameplay trailer. Because it pretty much just kind of.
I don't know anything about One Piece.
That's hard to answer because it seems like at first they're like, no, it's original story. You don't have to have caught up or whatever. But now they're like, well, whenever they're like trying to wink and nudge, like, you remember this from Alabasta? You remember this character? You like this part of the show, right?
I don't know. You tell me. Well, do I like it?
Alabasta. It's. I think it's one of the more like well-regarded arcs of the series, even though it's pretty old now. But I think a lot of people really like the antagonist of Alabasta. Vivi is a fan favorite character for a lot of good reasons. So I say you should try it if you have any interest.
Why isn't this Bleach or Demon Slayer? I know those series. I don't know One Piece.
Maybe Ilka or ILCA will get on those after this.
Oh, I'm gonna write an email to them.
Yeah, who do we have slated to review this, Adam? Do you know?
I don't think we have anyone yet.
Not slated yet. We should give this to Chow.
Damn,
Chow is he's the one that plays all these anime RPG adaptations. Because this one I think seems promising.
I'm not qualified to review this game. I'm sorry.
I've read 50 chapters of One Piece.
You're more qualified than I am.
What?
You're more qualified than I am.
No way.
You were 100% more qualified, dude. I fucking referred to this character as Nico, and Adam was like, "Hell no, it's Robin." Thank you very much.
Chow's getting war flashbacks to the last anime
Fairy Tail
RPG you had to review.
Look, I have never played a good anime adaptation video game. I have Little Witch Academia.
Oh man. Chow here didn't have a childhood. He didn't get to play Legacy of Goku 2 on the Game Boy Advance.
Chow. You didn't get to play the keynote that was Ultimate Battle 2022.
Oh god. I thought it had a good art style for its time. Like, man, that game was some serious dog shit.
And then the last two pieces of news here are just some upcoming Switch ports. even though I guess one is Switch and PC. That is for Digimon World Next Order. This game originally released back in 2016, 2017, but Bandai Namco has announced that it will be launching for Nintendo Switch and PC via Steam in February of next year, so February 2023. It's currently available on Vita and PS4. And then the other Switch announcement that we got for next year, for March 2023, is that we're getting a Switch port for Record of Agarest War. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. This originally released back in 2007 through 2010. It's currently available on PC, 360, mobile, and PS3. But now we'll also have a Switch version next spring.
I laughed when I saw this press release.
Okay.
And a friend of mine
Why?
put it as the Kusoge that wouldn't die.
I think the funniest thing is that, like, originally this game was a Vita version, but I'm not even sure if it's fair to say that the Vita version should even count, because it was blatantly unfinished, and then the PS4 version finished it. And
Okay,
now we have the Switch version.
Wait, is there-
are we talking about Digimon World or
We're talking about
Agarest?
Agarest now.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah, we kind of skipped over the Digimon World Next Order for some reason, but I wanted to comment that they're actually
No one
adding, like,
commented
new
on
things.
it.
I
And then
heard
he
the
said
next
Switch
headline
for
because
God.
no one.
I'm so sorry.
So
Yeah,
it's
I
okay. We
blinked
have
and you went through it so fast.
Well, it seemed like no one had feedback on Digimon Next Order, so I'm like, all right, let me go to the next headline. All right,
No, I was gonna
here's
say
your
for
chance
Digimon.
to talk about Digimon.
Okay, so say what you were gonna say, James. I guess both James and I just fucking blinked, and then
Yeah,
Yeah,
like,
I
I
heard
heard
it.
Switch and laugh, and I was like, well, I can understand that reaction. That seems like a reasonable reaction to this game getting a random port on Switch and PC, what, 5 years later?
yeah, yeah. For they're adding new stuff like a run, and I think another thing for it, like
Yeah.
make it less shit. I remember it not getting great reviews back in the day.
I remember it critically wasn't well received, but I think part of that was it came after Digimon Story, so a lot of people kind of expected it to be like Cyber Sleuth, and it's like, no, this is Digimon World. Get your
Yeah.
Digimon right.
But like even Digimon World fans were like, "This is like the Digimon."
I
World.
don't
But it was
know.
like-
I don't know. I
that's what
knew a
heard about
lot
Next
of
Order.
Digimon World fans. Maybe the Vita original was hot garbage.
Maybe.
I'm looking at my shelf. I realize.
All right, Digimon World fans, you gotta listen up to this point in the podcast and let us know what to think about Next Order, because I don't remember.
Was
shit about-
Digimon World Next Order a Kusoge or Hidden Kino? Sound off in the comments below. Make it a Twitter. Well, we need to make this a Twitter poll. We need to make this a Twitter poll.
Was it a Kusoge or
The
Kamige?
people must know. The people must know. But I don't know. Somehow I own a Vita copy of this and a PS4 copy of this. So maybe I'll buy it on PC or Switch. Just keep the streak going.
I don't know. Like,
played either copy.
Yeah, I played Cyber Sleuth, but I played the original like Digimon World 1 and 2 on like PS1 back in the day. I didn't get the Next Order for some reason. I was like, I don't know, I don't really care. But maybe it's good. Maybe it being on PC like is awesome or something. I'm not sure. All I know is like there was like a producer message along with this announcement, and they're basically reconfirming that they already previously confirmed that they're working on more Digimon games. Like they previously shared that they were working on like a Digimon game that was about, what was it, out of the 12 Olympians or something? It was something like that.
I don't know my Digimon.
I don't know. I probably really botched it about the 12 Olympians, but I have no idea. But they said they're working on that and like whatever the next Digimon story is.
So I did just double check. The Switch and PC version is coming 6 years after the PS4 release.
Let's go.
And almost 7 years after the original Vita release. Why did they decide that now was the time to do a quote unquote like re-release remaster?
Because Digimon
Who
Survive
knows?
sold so well, and they're like, holy shit, we gotta cash in.
You know, you're joking about that, but when I was going through SteamDB, because I was like, hey, I wonder how Digimon survived it. Did you know that it peaked at like 25,000 viewers on Twitch, and it had over 6,000 people concurrently playing on Steam? That game actually did well.
It's definitely more successful than
guess.
Theo.
Dang, that's fucked up. I mean, that's great, I guess. I'm very happy for Digimon Survive. Um,
While you
sure.
guys have been talking, I've been looking and like, can I do a poll on TweetDeck on the RPG account? Digimon World Order, Kino or Kusage?
Digimon World Next Order, :
Next order.
Very important you
If I- if-
specify
if-
the game.
Yeah, put it without context too. You just have to like those are just the only words. That's it.
Oh, great, will do. If you see that, you know who to blame, and it's not me.
Make sure that instead of it being an O, it's a 0 for the order.
Yeah,
Because
of
technically
course.
that's how it goes.
Yeah, unforgivable that Adam would obviously miss that. I don't. And then the second one, the Axis Games bringing Record of Agarest more to Nintendo Switch next March. I laughed too, Adam. By the way, when I read this, I'm like, I guess this game is certifiably not good, but you will trick some people into playing this video game on their Switch.
I was almost gonna say something, but I did not want to be mean to Hyperdimension Kieran.
What the fuck? Just say it. Say it. What the fuck?
Neither are Neptunia, but that hasn't stopped Idea Factory from releasing Neptunia 1 like 6 or 7 times.
10,000% right. Damn it. Fuck.
What the HP really stands for.
No. Well, maybe at some point. It's like GOG and good old games. Like GOG used to mean something and now just GOG. So that's
I remember there was a whole thing. I remember there was a whole thing where they said goodoldgames.com is shutting down, and then it was like a whole sentence where it's like, because we're rebranding to GOG.com.
Yeah. Record of Agarest 4 is it's I don't know. I don't even know how you describe it. It's like a generational strategy RPG where like you play with a certain party and then eventually you hook up with one of the girls, and then you play the next generation and their family, and it's like a grind and not really that interesting and very slow. And I was like, was this the first PS3 RPG? And I was like, no, that's Omega Quintet, I think. Or no, that's PS4.
Yeah.
So was this the first PS3 RPG then? I can't remember the like RPG before Record of Agarest 4.
Sounds like
PS3.
that. What's that?
Records of Agarest 4 was 2007. When was
like I guess unless you I think Untold Legends or Dark Kingdom or whatever, was that a PS3 launch? I'm trying to remember a PS3 launch if there was an RPG. But that was like an action RPG-ish thing. But I don't know. It was one of the earliest PS3 games and like just hot garbage. And they continued to make more, which is like the fucked up part. Like Idea Factory's like, let's make more, and then they eventually stumbled onto Neptunia by accident, and that sold unfortunately. And here we are. They're still on Neptunia.
I'm so sad that Fairy Fencer F like SRPG released like a month and a half ago. It did so poorly it did not even make top 30 the week it released.
Really? I forgot that game existed until you like reminded me, and I was like, did anyone say anything?
Yeah, and it's funny because it's like I was like I was on install base because every like week I check just because I'm curious of like the Japanese weekly sales, and I remember the week it came out, people were talking for a couple pages, and then somebody just mentioned, "Oh yeah, this game came out during this week, and it didn't even chart." And then people were like, "Oh shit."
Well, another hot game coming soon, eventually, probably overseas.
Well, I mean, it could be good. It's just that
theoretically,
yeah,
on paper.
I mean, we'll be pioneers. We'll be exploring the lost frontier of the Fairy Fencer F reboot / SRPG to see if it's any good, because there sure as hell is no Japanese impressions to go off of.
All right, Chow, we're citing you Fairy Fencer F strategy RPG. Fine.
Jesus, I
think it's called Refrain Chord. Don't worry. It's an Idea Factory game. It doesn't move the plot forward. It's just retelling.
Are you excited, Chow?
As excited as playing Kusoge.
All right, you're already in the right headspace.
There we go.
One of these days, we'll assign Chow a good game. Well, with those 2 Switch spring releases for next year out of the way and straightened out, that kind of covers us for this week. So kind of a lot of a catch-up week for the final wrap-up of Square Enix's releases in their insane 2022. Obviously, a continual focus on Falcom and Trails series and getting all those games as they release at a rapid cadence. And then, of course, all the other stuff for the upcoming releases as we get late into the year. Thank you to both Adam and Josh for talking about some of the kind of undercard releases in Batora, Lost Haven, and Kaiju Monster Rancher, as well as look back at 428 Shibuya Scramble from Chow and Final Fantasy XIV from James, as well as looking at, of course, the recent release of Persona 5 Royal on all the platforms. You can find RPG Site on all the social media feeds. If you search for RPG Site on primarily Twitter, but also Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram, you can find us there. On the YouTube, James did put up some PC gameplay footage from Persona 5 Royal. So if you're not sure exactly what that looks like at a high resolution and frame rate, go ahead to our YouTube channel and go take a look for yourself. We also have our Discord.
I'm going to preempt this because people noticed the issue in the video. There is a graphical like artifact like during the video whenever there's an all-out attack that is not present in my local copy. YouTube fucked up. Complain to Google.
Thanks for that clarification. You can also join our Discord channel if you want. If you go to discord.gg/RPG Site. And we'll be back next week with another edition of the Tetracast. And on the site side here, we're going to start looking into how we're going to scope out the end of the year stuff because it is not too far away. So look forward to that. Within a couple months, we will have to deliberate all of these releases over the last 12 months, including back to last December, and decide which ones we liked best for this year. So that's kind of a reminder to us on the staff side here that we have a lot of decisions ahead of us in the coming month and a half or so. But thank you so much for listening. If you listen to us either on the YouTube or directly on the site post or on Spotify or iTunes or Google Podcasts, let us know how we're doing. Give us some feedback. Give us comments. We love reading those. Let us know what we're doing well. Let us know what we can improve on. And beyond that, thank you so much for listening. If you made it to the end, stay safe and take care, and you'll hear from us next time.